everyone, I'm Crimson Iris. I play Resident Evil games, survival horror games, even a little bit of co-op shooters and other stuff, but mostly horror games, and primarily Resident Evil. And today, we are going to be ranking all 39 Resident Evil games that I have played. I think this is, barring some smaller ones that are only released in Japan, I think this is all of them, and it's including some of the older mobile games like Degeneration and Mercenaries, and the board games, and even the deck building game. So, pretty sure I've got everything covered. I'm not covering every version of every game. Like, I'm not doing like Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 2 DualShock version and Resident Evil 2 Dreamcast. So when I'm ranking a game, just assume I'm ranking the best version of it. I'll probably mention which version I'm thinking of, and I will maybe break down why I think that's the best version of it as well. There are some in here that are different versions, like we do have the remakes, obviously. They're quite different games in every case. And we do have Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut and Resident Evil Deadly Silence, because I think there's enough differences in them to be treated differently, and I have played all of them. This is a tier list of how much I enjoy each of these games. This isn't like me trying to make an objective, this Resident Evil is better than this Resident Evil. This is just a personal list of how much I enjoy each Resident Evil. So don't come at me saying, oh, well, this one's definitely better than this one because of this. In fact, this is just how much I prefer them. And sometimes I get hung up on a very specific thing that might annoy me in a game, or I get hung up on something that I absolutely love, but even if the rest of it isn't as good, that makes me love it. This isn't going to be a factual, objective representation of Resident Evil games. It's just my preference. If you do disagree and you want to share your own opinions, please leave your opinions down in the comments below so that we can have a discussion. I'd love to talk about other people's favorite games, hear your reasoning behind why you love certain games, especially if they're ones I don't like, because then I want to hear maybe what I missed, and then maybe I'll give them another go and we'll find out if maybe I did miss something and I need to appreciate it differently. So, before we start, I do want to say that I'm going to be going into detail about a lot of these games, and there will be heavy spoilers for all of them throughout, except Resident Evil 9, because I don't know that yet, because it's not out at the time of recording this video. All of the others, there will be spoilers, so if you're planning to play these games and you haven't played them yet, come back and watch it after you finish playing them. Without further ado, let's get on with the video. So, I think the best place to start is with the original Resident Evil. Now, this is the one that started it all. I'm not putting it in F, I'm just putting it down. And this is the first one I played, fully anyway, first one I completed. First one I saw was not Resident Evil 1, the first one I saw someone play I think was Resident Evil 3, but it was just the opening up until first Nemesis fight, and then when I got around to playing them myself, I started with the first one and played through them all. I think Resident Evil 1 is an absolutely fantastic game. The original Resident Evil, I love the environment, I love it's almost a colourful mansion. Like every room has a very unique identity. Every room has like different wallpaper, different carpets, different like brightly coloured, different patterns, different colours, different enemies, different items. It all comes together to make this kind of creepy haunted house vibe of monsters that then the sort of twist, which I imagine most people went into this game kind of already knowing this twist, but the twist being the fact that it's actually all man-made. They're not supernatural monsters at all in a haunted mansion. It's a company underneath in a lab making them. And I unfortunately already knew that twist when I played, and I think most people did, but I think it's still just a cool concept, and I think it's great. And this one's ammo management and item management, I think, is some of the best in the series still. I think this one really, at the start of the game, especially when you don't know the game so well, once you know it quite well, you can probably get around it a bit easier, but it really encourages you to not kill everything you find, try and run past some. You don't know you don't know when your next handgun ammo is going to show up. You want to try and get past the zombies you think you're not going to come back to and kill the ones that are in rooms you're going to be going back through multiple times. You don't know what that is yet. So I think this one handles that the best and does backtracking so well. There's no tedious, run to this side of the mansion, then run all the way back to this side of the mansion, then run to this side of the mansion. You can learn a route that requires very little backtracking, but in your first playthrough, you don't know that. So you are running back and forth, but you know it's once you've realised, you know that it's all because of your lack of knowledge. And in future playthroughs, you can get a much more refined route and pick things up as you go around. I love Resident Evil 1. Replayability and unlockables. Well, replayability, you've got 2 characters. Jill, who's basically easy mode, because Barry will save you in a number of situations and you have much bigger inventory. The only downside is that you have less health. You even get another gun. You get a grenade launcher that Chris doesn't get, which I think is insane. Well, I think it's called Bazooka, even though it's a grenade launcher. And yeah, the only downside is you have less health, which, to be honest, is perfectly manageable considering all those other things. There's that, and then there's Chris. So, and things change. You have Rebecca instead of Barry. You have more health, but people don't show up to save you as much. You can heal from Rebecca, and that's about it. Other than that, you're saving her more than she's saving you. You got Fight Plan 42 on your own. Actually, that's not true. You can get Rebecca to make the V-Jolt, but Barry just comes in with a flamethrower. So there's that. You have much less inventory. 6 slots is not enough, in my opinion. 6 slots in Resident Evil 1 is actually quite unfun to play. It's not quite enough inventory space to play through the game, in my opinion. Obviously, it can be done, but does feel very difficult, and not in the best way. I think either Chris should have got an upgrade to 8 at some point in the game, or maybe it should have been Chris has 8 and Jill has 10, like in Resident Evil 2 and 3. You start with 8 and upgrade to 10, so maybe Jill should have been 10, Chris should have been 8. Nonetheless, this is what we got. And unlockables, there's only one, the Infinite Rocket Launcher, which is got by completing in under like 3.5 hours, something like that. I like more in games. Obviously, this was the first one, so it's kind of forgiven, but I do think that does limit the replayability a little bit, because you can't unlock anything to work towards that. You can't, okay, let's work on the Infinite Ammo pistol first so that we can then get it in under 3 hours to unlock the Infinite Rocket Launcher, anything like that. You can't do that. You just got to go through it under 3 hours, get the Infinite Rocket Launcher. But at least there is something. This was the first one. They didn't know how much people can be replaying these games, which they were going to be speedrunning them. And they didn't know, and they still put unlockable in. Just a little, oh, here's an Infinite Rocket Launcher to blast through the game if you do it in under 3 hours, I think. And the other, actually, you know what? I completely forgot to mention one of the main points of replayability. Multiple endings. It has 4 endings per character. One where you don't save anyone, one where you save one person, one where you save the other person, and then one where you save everyone. Now, speaking of unlockables, I prefer the PC version of this game, because the PC version has 2 additional unlockables. It has an infinite ammo submachine gun for Jill, and an infinite ammo light machine gun for Chris. I can't remember the exact names of either of them right now, but in the PC version, those are very fun to play with, and those are unlocked instead of the rocket launcher for completing it in under 3-4 hours, whatever it was, and instead to unlock the rocket launcher for complete without saving. But they only carry over to the next playthrough. So if you want a playthrough where you have both the infinite ammo rocket launcher and the infinite ammo machine gun, you need to do a run where you complete it in under the time limit and also without saving. And I love that. I love the machine guns in Resident Evil 1. I really wish there were more versions and not just the PC version. So when I'm ranking this, I'm ranking the PC version that has those extra guns. And that makes me put the game in S+, because this set the standard and it was fantastic, but I think it was improved upon in future iterations, which we'll talk about when we get to them. Now, before we do Resident Evil 2 and 3, because I do kind of want to start with the original trilogy of Resident Evil games, I am going to do Director's Cut, because Resident Evil Director's Cut, it's the same game, but it has a number of changes. First of all, it has an arrange mode, and that changes the way the game flows, where key items are, where enemy placements are. It gives you a better handgun that has the chance to crit them and blow their heads off. It also adds an unlockable infinite magnum for getting the best ending, but the ending where you save everyone. A lot of good improvements, and that gives it a bit more replayability. You can replay through it with a different layout. I mean, the match is the same layout, with a different key item layout, which changes the way you go through the game. And that's all good. But personally, I think the way the game flows in the arrange mode isn't as good as the original. I think there are some puzzles that make slightly less intuitive sense. And I also, as much as I love the Infinite Magnum, I really like the Infinite Machine Guns. And the Infinite Magnum's only usable in the arrange mode. You cannot use it in the normal mode of the game. So the normal mode is just locked to the Infinite Rocket Launcher. Also, PC version, door skip. You can skip the door animations. Director's Cut is never on PC, so you can't do that as well. So that's another reason that I think, as much as I love Director's Cut, and as close as this is, I think I slightly prefer the original version to the Director's Cut. And I know that's probably not most people's opinion, but I prefer the original flow. I don't like the arrange mode as much. I don't replay the arrange mode. If I'm going to replay Resident Evil 1, as often, I usually play the original. And I'd rather do it, if I'm doing it with like a infinite ammo run anyway, I'd rather have my machine guns. I would like to also specify, this is Director's Cut. This is not the Director's Cut DualShock version, which has the iconic, awful basement trumpet music. There is a Director's Cut, and then there's Director's Cut DualShock version. The normal Director's Cut just has the same soundtrack as the original, the good, eerie soundtrack. The Director's Cut DualShock version has the new soundtrack, the rearranged soundtrack. And if I'm being honest, there are some in there that are good, but I'd like to point that out. Obviously, the basement one is atrocious, and there's quite a few that aren't great and are worse than the original. It's probably overall worse than the original soundtrack. There are some in there that are good. I don't think they're all terrible. Either way, we're not reviewing Director's Cut DualShock version. Okay, so let's leave the rest of the versions of Resident Evil 1 for a bit, and let's move on to Resident Evil 2. The original Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2, the original version, is an improvement on the original Resident Evil 1 in almost every way. The character scenarios are more different, so when you play as Leon or Claire, they are more different than Jill and Chris were. And not only that, there is then a B scenario for each of those characters. So if you played as Claire first, you'd play Claire A scenario and then the Leon B scenario. If you played as Leon first, you'd play as the Leon A scenario and then the Claire B scenario. And all four of those scenarios are vastly different. Vastly. The key items different places, the cutscenes are different, fates of certain characters are different. Like the Chief, Brian Irons, becomes a G creature in Claire A. In Claire B, he just gets killed by William. Ada, Leon A, she, like in the remake, she's holding on to Leon and he drops her and she falls down into the bottomless lab below that we've never seen. We don't know what's down there, how far it is, or how she even survived, if she survived that ending. Because the other ending is completely different. The other ending, she is punched by Tyrant into a console that starts the self-destruct system, and then Leon gives her a kiss and then leaves her body, which obviously she's not dead, but he thinks she's dead, in the lab and runs off. Who cures Sherry is different. In one of them, Claire's the one who does everything for Sherry. She saves her, cures her, and takes her back to the train. In the other scenario, she has to pass it on to Leon. So Leon then takes her to the train and gets her cured. There's so many differences in these scenarios, and what you do in one can affect the other. There's one bit where you pick between increasing your inventory size or picking up a submachine gun, and whichever one you take isn't there for whoever you play as second. I think they called it the zapping system, but you can't. You could take both as your first character, and you got none for your second character. And the B scenario is a bit harder, so you kind of want to, if possible, leave both for the other character, because then they can carry the submachine gun with the extra inventory slots. But even if you can't do that, leave the better one for the second character, because their scenario is harder, and you don't know that when you first go in. It does tell you like, oh, maybe I should leave one for Leon or Claire, but you don't know it straight away. And you're just taking what you need, because you're playing it through for the first time. You're taking what you need to survive. The other thing is there's a door that requires 2 fingerprints to get in. So when you play as your first character, you cannot go through that door. You put your fingerprint on the door, you need another one. So when you get to your second character, only if you did it as the first character can you then put the fingerprint on and go in and get in there, because you've put 2 fingerprints in the door and you can get through. Things like that. All of these sorts of things that didn't come up in the remake as well, I'll point out, which we'll cover when we get to the remake. These are all great additions. Now, I'm going to be talking about the DualShock version of this game because I don't think there's quite enough differences to count as a separate version, like with Director's Cut. But there are a few important details. Well, one mainly, which is Extreme Battle Mode, which is a good bit of fun. It's 3 stages. You pick your character. You start off with Leon and Claire, and you've got to get through the lab, and then that's the first level. The second level is the sewers, and the last level is the police station. And then you got to find 6 bombs. I think it's 6. 6 bombs, and then once you finish, you unlock another character, and you can unlock Ada, and you can unlock Chris from Resident Evil 1. And Chris is my favourite. He's got a custom shotgun, a rocket launcher, I think. I can't remember what else. Extreme Battle Mode. And that's really good. So we're going to be reviewing that version of this game, because I think that is the best version of this game. Well, I guess we're reviewing the PC version, because it's exactly the same as the DualShock version, except it also has door skip. So the ability to skip the door animation is always a bonus. As iconic as they are, they get tedious on multiple playthroughs. So there's that. The other bonus game modes is Hunk's Scenario, the 4th Survivor, which is hard. It's very hard. I've only done it once, I think, on the original. You're playing as Hunk. He's just woken up after suffering injuries from fighting William in the sewers. He's woken up and he's got to get to his extraction point before Raccoon City is blown up. You start with a pistol, shotgun, and a magnum, some herbs, and that's it. You don't find anything else throughout the whole run. You have to get through some of the sewers, all of the police station, and get out without dying, without finding any other resources. It's quite tough. But then there's also Tofu mode, which is exactly the same. And you're playing as a block of tofu, by the way, like a big white cuboid. And he's only got a knife, so it's even harder. I've never completed the Tofu mode on this version of the game. It is very hard. That's all the bonus modes. They're a bit of fun. Unlockables and replayability. There's obviously replayability in the sense that there's 4 different scenarios to play that are different enough to feel like you're playing through a new scenario each time. And then there's also the fact that there's an unlockable infinite ammo submachine gun, infinite ammo Gatling gun, infinite ammo rocket launcher by getting various different ranks at the end of the game. And you have to unlock them separately for Leon A, Claire B, and Claire A, Leon B. So if you want them all, you got to do a lot of playthroughs to get all those unlockables. Minor gripe, it's just a thing that might come up in a few games. I hate when Resident Evils punish you for using previous unlockables to get future unlockables, and this one does that a little bit. It decreases your rank using them. I feel like the idea is to make like a ladder, and some of the other games do this really well. When we get to them, I'll talk about that. But make unlockables not too hard to get, quite an easy thing, like an infinite ammo handgun, and then that makes the game a bit easier. Now you got to do a harder thing that unlocks the infinite ammo shotgun or something like that, and then that makes it a bit easier to do something that's even harder. I like this sort of like progression where you go, each thing you unlock helps you unlock the next thing. And I don't like when the games punish you for using unlocks, or just outright don't allow it. So that's one downside. But let's talk about the contents of the main game. The Raccoon City police station is one of, if not the most iconic location in Resident Evil, and there's a reason. It is, in my opinion, the best designed location for puzzle solving and exploration in the whole franchise. This is the game that introduces it. Like, it shows up in lots of other games, and it's fantastic in most of them, but this is the one that introduced it. This is the one that made it what it is today, and it's great. The layout's fantastic, the level design's so good, the pacing in all 4 scenarios is excellent, music throughout the whole thing is very atmospheric. It's one of the best soundtracks in the franchise, something the remake could have done with. The story being told, sure, it's not told in the best way. The voice acting is not great. It's fine for the time. It's a lot better than the first game. But overall, the story being told is great, even if it's not told in the best way. I think this is overall an improvement on the mansion of Resident Evil 1. It's a very interesting environment. There's a lot of storytelling in this environment, much more than Resident Evil 1. You can see in the pre-rendered backgrounds, which look great for the time. The pre-rendered backgrounds are so good. You can see that there were struggles in certain rooms where the barricades have been knocked down. There are dead bodies all over the place. It is excellent. And the lab feels vast. The lab feels huge. You see other doors that are like blocked off or you can't get to, so you know the lab is bigger than what you visit. And also there's the room that's like a big chasm, goes all the way down, and it looks like it's bottomless. It's huge. It's a massive lab, and you're made very aware You don't see all of it. The Plant 43 on the ladder, you can see there's more ladder going down, which we do explore in Outbreak a little bit, that leads to other floors that you never get to see. The sewer is obviously one of the worst bits of this game. It's not too long though, especially in the original version. This game also introduces the stalker mechanic. Like in Resident Evil 1, we didn't have a stalker enemy, but in this one we have Tyrant, or as he's called now, Mr. X. But Tyrant, he's a lot more scripted in this one. He shows up in specific rooms at specific times, but it's the first iteration of this stalker enemy, and I think it's done really well for this game. It only shows up in the B scenario, so you don't see him in your first playthrough. So it's a shock in your B scenario when this almost invincible monster drops down through the ceiling and just starts wailing on you, and you can't kill him. You can knock him down, but you can't kill him, and he shows up multiple times, makes you jump by bursting through walls and being completely silent, completely stoic, just walking towards you and clobbering you. He's great. Also, thinking of iconic enemies, this game also introduces lickers, and they have great sound design in this one. They do like a really breathy sort of every time they're in a room, so you know, like when you walk through, you immediately know, oh, this is the room with the licker. I heard the noise. I need to walk quietly. They don't have eyes. They can only hear me. They can't see me. I need to be quiet. I need to be stealthy, and I need to avoid them. There's so many good things to say about this game. I could be here all day, but we'll cut it off there. And I'm probably, to no one's surprise, put this in S++. This is one of the best Resident Evil games ever made. To be honest, I think there's much argument on that. I think that's just, there's not much more to say. It's one of the best Resident Evil games ever made. So, with that said, let's finish off the trilogy with Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Now, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is hard. It is much harder than any of the previous games. It follows the same sort of premise as the previous Resident Evil games. There's backtracking, you finding items, you're running around, but you're doing all over Raccoon City, and some of those are actually my favourite environments. You do go in the police station briefly, as well as Jill. I do wish there's more interaction with characters in the police station. Kind of wish you'd met up with Marvin or someone. That's a bit of a cutscene. You didn't really get Brad. That Brad cutscene at the start, when he gets killed by Nemesis, is still one of my favourite cutscenes of the whole franchise. I love everything about the campaign of this game. It's got some very interesting enemy designs. It's got more weapons than either of the previous games. But the main attraction is Nemesis, right? He is relentless. He is difficult to fight. His AI is so good. He actually chases you through rooms. So let's focus on Nemesis. Nemesis first shows... It doesn't show up straight away like he does in the remake. He first shows up at the police station and kills Brad in front of you, showing you that he's killing STARS members. You do hear about him a little bit beforehand from Brad, and Brad's like in a panic. He's like, oh, there's someone off the STARS member, there's no escape. And that's good too. When you first meet him, you get a choice. And this comes up a few times in the game where you get a little selection screens like, what do you want to do? Do you want to run? Do you want to fight? So those are usually your options, but there's other ones. In this situation, if you choose to fight him, you are met with one of the hardest boss fights in the franchise. If you don't use the cheese strat where you kind of get him stuck. And he's not easy to get stuck. His AI is pretty good. In most situations, if he gets stuck, after a few seconds, he will reroute himself to get to you. So he gets unstuck a lot, and he's tough. But this fight at the start is tough, and it's an endurance test, because it is a series. If you're not using the cheese, it is a series of run, get a shot, maybe two with your handgun. If you use your shotgun, he's probably gonna get a punch in, and then avoid his punch, run around, turn around, get another shot or two in, run past him, avoid his punch. And it takes a while, and if you slip up, you're gonna take some damage. You can slip up a few times and survive. You're gonna take some serious damage. He punishes you if you mess up. And you kind of have to know that strat as well to like run past and use the handgun, because you're trying to use your shotgun, because naturally you're thinking, oh, the shotgun does more damage. You're gonna take a battering, and he's gonna mess you up. And that first one is quite forgiving. If you choose to run away, he will try and follow into the police station, but he can't get through the main door. You'll see him banging on the main door. You can't get back out, but he can't get in. But your reward for beating him is incredible. There's two things, kind of three. First of all, whenever you kill Nemesis in this game, he drops an item. There are 6 times you can do this. The first time you beat him, he drops handgun parts A, and the second time you beat him, he drops handgun parts B, which you can then combine into a much stronger handgun that uses the same ammo as your weaker handgun. I say stronger. It does the same amount of damage. it fires faster, and has a much higher chance of critting the enemy, so killing them in one shot, which is very important in a Resident Evil game. That can save you so much ammo getting a critical hit. So you want that gun. But the real important thing here is it's based on how many times you've beaten him. It's not based on which fight you're in. So if you skip the first 3 fights with him and run away, on the 4th fight, he's still going to drop handgun parts A, and then on the 5th fight, he's going to drop handgun parts B. And on the last fight, he's going to drop first aid sprays on the 3rd kill. And then that's it. You've now done all the fights with him, and you only got rewards 1, 2, and 3. You didn't get the last reward, because the only way to get the last reward is to beat him in all fights in a row. And then you get the final one. So, first time you beat him, handgun parts A. Second time you beat him, handgun parts B. Third time, first aid sprays. 4th time, shotgun parts A. 5th time, shotgun parts B. And then you can combine the shotgun parts to create a lever action shotgun that is fast and fun to use. It doesn't do any more damage, but it's faster than the normal one, and it's one of my favorite guns in the franchise. I'm glad they brought it back in Resident Evil 4 Remake. And I love the lever action shotgun. But if you kill him the 6th time, the last reward, if it's your first playthrough, I believe, it's an assault rifle, which is very useful. If you're playing on easy mode, you already have an assault rifle. In fact, if you're playing on easy mode, I'm pretty sure he doesn't drop items. I think that's true. If you're playing on easy mode, he doesn't drop items. I'm going to leave this in. Someone else can fact check me. If you're playing hard mode, there's only easy and hard. He drops items, and you don't have an assault rifle. The only way that Jill can get an assault rifle without getting an infinite ammo one unlocked is by doing this fight. Is by not only doing this fight, but doing all of the Nemesis fights leading up to that one and winning all of them. But on any subsequent playthrough, that last reward is a box of infinite ammo you can apply to any gun. So your delayed reward from beating him on the first fight is the ability to unlock infinite ammo for any gun. You can put it on a Magnum, you can put it on a shotgun, you can put it on the lever action shotgun if you want. You can even put it on the rocket launcher, but you get the rocket launcher so close to the end that I would say don't do that. You're not going to be able to use it very much. And I think that's great. And that's not even the only reward for beating Nemesis on the first fight, because you can also loot Brad's dead body after you've beaten him, or even if you're quick enough, you can do it in the fight and then leave. But you can loot Brad's dead body, take his stars card, and then you don't have to do the bit where you go and get Jill's stars card to unlock the computer. You can just use Brad's one instead to get the code. Now, all of this said is great, and exploring Raccoon City is one of my favorite things. I love the parts of Resident Evil 2 and 3 where you're just exploring Raccoon City. It's my favorite environment to explore, maybe equally with the police station, but that's also in this game. So I love this game. There is one thing I hate about this game, and it's something actually the remake fixed, and I think people don't talk about this maybe enough. The unlockables for this game are the worst. Not to say that the rewards are the worst. Infinite ammo assault rifle, infinite ammo minigun, infinite ammo rocket launcher, and infinite ammo for all guns. I love when the Resident Evil does that. I love being able to get infinite ammo for all guns. The way you unlock them is the worst. There is one bonus mode for Resident Evil 3, the Mercenaries Operation Mad Jackal. And you choose between 3 of the UBCS operatives from the main game. That's Nikolai, Mikhail, and Carlos. Mikhail has the best weapons. Mikhail has a shotgun, a rocket launcher, and a magnum. Carlos has an assault rifle, pistol, and a knife, I think. Maybe he doesn't have a knife. But Nikolai only has a knife. So you get the most points as Nikolai, but it's very hard to complete as Nikolai. And you have to do this run. It's the same every time. You're on a timer, and you get from the tram that they escape to the clock tower on, all the way back to the first save room of the game in Dario's workshop. Is there a workshop? Whatever. And there's a timer. You get more time for getting kills and for finding secret areas. You also get more time because there are, I think, 6 or 8 survivors. There are several survivors to find throughout. Finding each of them gives you more points, gives you more time, and they also drop an item. This is the only way to get extra items from your starting items in this mode, is to save the civilians and then pick up wherever they drop. This mode is fun once or twice, but it gets boring quick. And if you want to unlock all of the unlockables, this is the only way you can do it. There's no actual reward for playing through the main game of Resident Evil 3. There are no unlockables to get through playing the main game of Resident Evil 3. They are all got through the Mercenaries Mad Jackal. If you want all of them, I think it's 2,000 points for the assault rifle, 3,000 for the minigun, 4,000 for the rocket launcher, and then 9,999 for the infinite ammo for every gun. And in a successful run of Operation Mad Jackal, where you get from start to finish, you save every character, you're probably playing as Mikhail or Carlos, you find all of the hidden button presses that get you extra time and points. In a run like that, you're probably going to get about 2,000 points, which means if you unlock everything, you have to do that about 9 or 10 times. It's not easy, especially like when you play as many times as I have, you know everything, you know where the enemies are, you know what the creatures are. I've unlocked all of those things on multiple consoles, PS1, PS3, PC, lots of things, right? I've done this lots of times. I know how to do it. When you're first learning the routes and stuff, it takes ages for you to actually complete your first run. You're probably going to have 20 to 30 failed runs before you get your first successful run, and they're only going to get you 100 to 200 points each. And it's demoralizing. You're making almost no progress towards some of these, and you're not finishing them. You don't feel like you're doing well. It is kind of fun to learn, but it sucks that the reason you're doing it is for the unlockables for the main game. Because if you're just doing it for high scores, I think that mode would be more fun. The fact that you're doing it because you want to play through the game again with your unlocked items sucks. Because you're gating progress for the main game behind a bonus mode, which I don't think is a good idea. Operation Mad Jackal is fun to play, but only when you want to play it, not because you want to unlock stuff for another mode. Like, you're waiting to play through the whole game again, like, oh, I want an infinite ammo assault rifle, I want to play through the game with an infinite ammo assault rifle. I need to hit Operation Mad Jackal hard to learn what I'm doing, to get what I'm doing. And even now, even once you know what you're doing, okay, now I can do a run. Now you got to do it while getting all the people so you can get even more points. And then once you do that, even then sometimes you'll fail, and then you'll waste a whole run where you only get a few hundred points. I think this is the worst way to unlock stuff. However, on the other side of replayability, not talking about unlockables now, this game has incredible replayability. Because there's a bunch of choices you can make through the game, which do influence the outcome of certain events. Like they'll literally, the screen will flash black and white, and you choose, I want to run away, I want to hide, or I want to fight, or whatever. And it changes the flow of the game, changes the cutscenes, changes the conversations you have with some characters, changes which way you go next, changes the order you find some items. That's great. Also, there are some decisions you make that you don't know you're making. Like it doesn't flash up on the screen, doesn't come with words that tell you the decisions. If you go to the restaurant first, you meet Carlos there, you have 5 nemesis in the restaurant, you go to the reporting office, and you find the jewel there and you leave. If you go to them the other way around, you see something completely different. If you go to the reporting office first, Carlos is there suddenly. He wasn't there in the first playthrough, the jewel's not there. Nemesis shows up, you fight Nemesis in this tight corridor in the reporting office. And it's, in my opinion, it's harder to do it that way around. And then you can go back to the cafe, go into the basement, and down there's the jewel now. It's not in the reporting office at all, it's now in the cafeteria. There's a few places like this in the game where you don't even realise you're making a decision, and that's fantastic, because you could play this game through 4 or 5, 6, up to 10 times, and not even realise that there's been a choice you're making that you didn't know you could do differently. And you might be like, every time you play the game, you see, oh, there's Nikolai killing Murphy, and then suddenly Carlos kills Murphy, and you're like, wait, Carlos is here? And he's much more upset about it. You didn't realize Carlos can do that bit, because you never realized that was even a decision you were making until you randomly decided to make one difference in your playthrough. And there's a few of those. And I think that's really good, and it's a shame that sort of thing wasn't in the remake. That's a big thing missing from the remake. In addition to that, there's just more randomness to this game than any of the others. Items can move, like non-key items. Like, sometimes you go in one room and it's ammo, sometimes it's herbs, sometimes enemies change as well, sometimes it'll be hunters, sometimes it'll be drained demos, or sometimes it'll just be zombies. Things change on playthroughs, and it's great. It makes the game less predictable. Oh, and the big one. People didn't mention this before. When you first go to the STARS office, very early on in the game, you're going to get a weapon. You're either going to get a grenade launcher or a Magnum. And now, while the Magnum is a much better gun, there is almost no Magnum ammo in this game. There is only one place where there's Magnum ammo, and it is much later on in the game. The only other way to get Magnum ammo is just to craft it, and you can craft a lot of it because it comes in high amounts. But if you get the grenade launcher early on, there's loads of grenade rounds around, and you can make lots of different grenade ammo for different amounts of gunpowder. Which is another thing I've forgotten to mention. there's like a skill system for the gunpowder. When you're mixing gunpowder to make pistol ammo or shotgun ammo, eventually, Joel's going to get good enough at making the ammo, you get the option to make enhanced versions of the ammo. So you can make enhanced pistol ammo or enhanced shotgun ammo that does way more damage. The enhanced pistol ammo staggers on every hit. The enhanced shotgun ammo feels like you're using the custom shotgun from Resident Evil 2. It blows them away. And you can only use those types of ammo on the first versions of the guns. Like, not the bonus versions that Nemesis dropped. You can't use it on the Eagle. You can't use it on the lever action shotgun. Which means you now have a reason to use those older guns again. Do you want the faster firing, higher crit chance versions of the guns, or do you want the ones that use the enhanced ammo now that deal more damage if you use the enhanced ammo? So it brings back a reason to use those older guns. This is fantastic. So, despite my irritation of the way the unlockables are handled, everything else about this game is the peak of Resident Evil for me. This is my favorite Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and so I'll be putting this right at the top here. And that is my favorite Resident Evil game. I don't think we're going to beat that. I love it so much. So now we've talked about what I consider to be best Resident Evil, my favorite Resident Evil at the very least. Let's talk about the worst, shall we? Come on, survival unit. Get on the board. This is Resident Evil Survival Unit. I played this for about 40 minutes, and that was 40 minutes too many. This game starts off almost tricking you, like many mobile games do. You play as this character who looks kind of a lot like Ethan. You can't see it in this picture here, but he does look a lot like Ethan from Resident Evil 8, but you can see his face, and they just call him Player. And you wake up in a hospital, and you're in Raccoon City, I think, is where you're supposed to be. And you walk out and you realize there's zombies everywhere. And you play kind of what seems to be maybe an interesting mobile game where you're solving puzzles, you're walking around this hospital, you're doing you're doing some of the puzzles that are from other games, and there's a lot of references. They did their research on the source material. There's a lot of references to Outbreak and Dead Aim and like lots of obscure Resident Evil games. And you're solving puzzles that are kind of from other games, like the electricity piece puzzle from Resident Evil 2 Remake. You're solving that one again. They know what they're doing. They're trying to get you as being a Resident Evil fan. And then once you leave this, suddenly you go to the mansion, and it introduces the mansion as like your hub. And this is where the game just goes downhill. It is just every other base building, heavily monetized mobile game out there. It's the same, but with a Resident Evil skin. I don't play those games, so I can't talk too much about it comparing to another game because I really don't like them. The monetization of this is egregious. I didn't spend any money myself. I got to the point where everything, building all my little buildings around my mansion, which is like your hub, was on cooldown, and then I stopped playing. I can't bother to wait an hour or two for something to happen so that I can play my game again. I don't like playing a game on the game's time. I like playing games on my time. I don't want to have to wait. And you don't have to wait. You can spend excessive amounts of money to speed things up. It is horrible how much you have to spend in this game to speed things up and get iconic characters that you know. People will have spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on this game. And I know they have, because there was a big event recently where everyone on each server, everyone was attacking this big umbrella lab with a big monster on it. The sort of powers they had, I watched people play this event. I didn't participate in it myself. I uninstalled the game after the first day. To get those powers, you must have spent lots and lots of money. To get characters like Leon and Carlos, the way you get them is awful. You have to spend so much money spinning wheels, getting like little tokens for them, progressing a battle pass. Like they use every trick, loot boxes, everything that you know gamers hate spending money on. They put it in this game multiple times. Spend enough money so that you win on your server, and this was happening on multiple servers. It's likely this Resident Evil may make more money than any other Resident Evil just because of the amount of money some people spend on this game, and that's upsetting to me, and the amount of people that are actually playing it. I hate this. I hate this practice. I hate this type of game, and I hate to say, this is the most recent Resident Evil game. At the time of making this video, this is the newest Resident Evil game. This is our most recent release. Yes, this is the worst Resident Evil game I've ever played. It is at the bottom, and it will be the bottom of F for the rest of this run. So now we've got our bookends. We're going between Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil Survival Unit. What next? next? What next? Who shall we do next? Let's get back to Resident Evil 1. We're talking about Resident Evil 1. Let's do the other versions we've got of Resident Evil 1 on here. So let's start with Remake. Because I think this is going to be my first hot take. I'm sorry, everyone. I think there's going to be a lot of disagreements about this, and I'm aware this is a bit of a hot take. Resident Evil 1 Remake. I'm hesitant to say this because of I feel like I'm going to get attacked in the comments here. Resident Evil 1 Remake is a fantastic game. It does everything really well. It has almost all the stuff from Resident Evil 1 I was talking about, where it's got a good layout of the mansion. It's got cool enemies. It adds new rooms. It only adds to the original game, and this is why I think so many people prefer it to the original Resident Evil, because it only adds. It doesn't take anything out. It adds Lisa Trevor, which is like a stalker type enemy, which Resident Evil 1 didn't have. It adds new areas. When you go into the courtyard, there's a whole like extra bit. There's now extra doors in the mansion. It has Crimson Head zombies, which was such a cool idea if Chris had more inventory space. But you have to burn the bodies of zombies, otherwise they come back stronger. And that creates a whole new level of tension of, oh, did I burn those bodies? Do I need to go back and burn them, or am I not going back in there? Can I just leave those ones? Lisa Trevor's cool because she's scary. The new areas are good. You go under the stairs in the mansion now, and that's a whole, like a new boss fight with Lisa Trevor. I love Resident Evil Remake. And this has a lot more to do afterwards. This has a lot more replayability because it has an unlockable infinite ammo pistol, which you get for completing under 5 hours, I think, and then the rocket launcher under 3 hours. So you can go for the pistol first, and then use that for the rocket launcher, and it's like a burst pistol as well, which is quite cool. It's like Barry's custom samurai edge, which is really cool. And then you unlock one dangerous zombie, which is a mode you actually can't turn off. Kind of wish you could, but it's good. It's a zombie strapped with grenades. I think is it Forrest? I think it's Forrest Speyer from Bravo Team. I think it is. And he's got grenades strapped to him. If you shoot him, explodes, instant game over. If he grabs you, explodes, instant game over. It's a zombie that you have to avoid and run away from whenever you see him. He doesn't show up too often, but when he does, you cannot shoot him and you have to run away. He does make a unique noise as well. It's like a jingling when he runs, like a rattling maybe. So you know when he's there and you can avoid him. You unlock Invisible Enemy Mode, which is a mode which is insane. I don't think I've ever actually finished Invisible Enemy Mode because I've never played the game enough times in a row to memorize the enemy spawns. All the enemies are in the game. The lock-on doesn't work on them, and they're invisible, so you can't see them. That's a good idea. I love putting in extra hard modes in these games that are just for the people who have learned them back to front. That's such a good idea. And then real survival mode. I'm not a fan of this one. It just means the item boxes aren't connected, so when you leave items in a box, you have to go back to that box to get those items. I hate that. That's a Resident Evil 0 style thing that I'm not happy with. But the voice acting's improved significantly from the first one. However, this game loses something for me, and I think not many people care about this as much as I do. The environments in this game do not live up to the original. All of them look so dull. They're very dark, they're very brown and grey. There's all the colour's been sucked out of them. Resident Evil 1, 2 and 3, the originals, are all quite colourful games. They're quite bright games, despite being a horror game, and that works so well for them, I think. I don't think these need to be as dark and gritty and horrible as Resident Evil 1 Remake is. And I know what I'm going to say might contradict what I'm going to say about Resident Evil 7 when we get to that, but I think it works better in 7. I'll explain that when we get to Resident Evil 7. But for Resident Evil 1, I think this game lost a big part of its identity when they redesigned all of these environments as boring, more dull, less interesting environments to see. The pre-rendered backgrounds, they look good, they look nice, they're good graphics. There's little bits of motion in them now. I don't think they live up to the original Resident Evil 1. And if I'm being perfectly honest, Resident Evil 1 Remake, because it's mostly that reason. And this is what I meant at the start when I said there are some things that just bother me and I can't get over it as easily. For me, this actually becomes possibly the worst remake of all of them, just because I really don't like the design choice of the environments. It's still a fantastic game. I still love this game. I've still played it many, many times, tens and tens of times. On the GameCube. I first played it on the GameCube, the original release, and I loved it. And then I played it on PlayStation 3, I played it on PlayStation 4, and I played it on PC. I unlocked everything on each version of it. I loved the game. Maybe I should... I was being a bit negative, but overly negative there. I should probably clarify. Pretty much all of the games on this list are D or above. I absolutely love. And I'm only comparing to each other. When I say, oh, this Resident Evil's not as good, it's still one of my favorite games of all time. It's just, I don't love it as much as Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 original, is what I'm saying, which are my favorite games. This is still up there as an S rank. The think these games are better. So yeah, for Resident Evil 1 Remake. Finishing off Resident Evil 1, kind of. There's Umbrella Chronicles as well, but we'll get to that later when we do first-person shooters. Deadly Silence for the Nintendo DS. I love this. I think that you can just play the original Resident Evil 1 on it. You can also play like a new arranged mode, which lets you use the stylus for certain puzzles. And some of the puzzles are great. There's one where you got like blow into the microphone to blow out candles. You got to use the stylus on like the clock puzzle. I can't remember. It's been so long since I played this game. And that's all great. And you got the same, unlock the rocket launcher. And you know what is one of the best things? Because the Nintendo DS had 2 screens, the bottom screen is just the map. So you can always see the map. You don't have to bring it up in a separate menu. You've got the map open the whole time with your health there and what item you've got equipped, what weapon you've got equipped. I mean, it's actually a great experience to play Resident Evil Deadly Silence on the Nintendo DS. Whether you're playing the original version on the DS or you're playing the new version with the stylus, extra puzzles, it's good. I love Resident Evil Deadly Silence. In some ways, I think it's the best way to play Resident Evil 1. However, it is on a DS. It's on a small screen. The controls are a bit clunky. They're not like, holding a Nintendo DS isn't as comfortable as holding a controller or using a mouse and keyboard. I do love it, and I will put it up there with the other Resident Evil 1 versions. It doesn't have the range mode. It doesn't have the machine guns. It doesn't, it's not the best way to play the game as much as I want to say it is. I love Deadly Silence though. I think it's really good. And I think people should give it a go if they want a mobile Resident Evil game. I think that might be the best portable Resident Evil game. I think if people want a portable Resident Evil game that isn't just the games on like a Steam Deck or something, that's one of the best ways to go, to be honest. I loved it. Okay, so that's Resident Evil 1 finished. Let's talk about the original Resident Evil 4. I love this game. This is a game I've played a lot. I played it on the GameCube, actually, so I played it first. I didn't unlock everything on the GameCube. There was less on the GameCube. There was no separate ways. But I did play through the whole game a couple of times on the GameCube. And then I got it on PS2 when it came out on PS2. And that is the version that I played a hell of a lot. Played it through once. I played it through on Professional. I played through separate ways. Simon Ada. All the Mercenaries, unlocked the hand cannon from Mercenaries, getting 5-star on every map as every character, then just played it through a bunch of times for fun. I love this game. Not when I first played it. Actually, that's something I probably should bring up. When I first played it on the GameCube, I was like, why have I fixed camera angles? Where's the color gone? Because this does have the same problem I have with Resident Evil 1. The color's a bit dull. It's a bit brown, it's a bit grey. It's not as bad as Resident Evil 1 Remake, but it is definitely a problem I have with this game that is fixed in the remake. I don't like the color scheme of this game, but other than that, it's fantastic. Obviously, it's a third-person shooter of the time. You can't move an A. There's still tank controls. People forget, I think. This game has tank controls. Just because the camera perspective's not fixed camera, it's still a tank controls game. You have to turn to move. You can't strafe. And that brings it down a bit, to be honest. If this game just let you strafe, that'd be great. But yeah, once I played it on PS2, after my first playthrough, when I was a bit skeptical of the new style, I got used to it. I loved it. It is a great game. I unlocked everything. PRL 412 is a fantastic unlockable weapon. There's a laser gun that hits everything. It didn't hit everything on the screen originally. In PS2 version, it just fired a straight beam. They updated it, I think, with the Wii version first to hit everything, and then all the remasters after that had that as well. But it's great. The story is great. Leon is great in this. This is where Leon really comes into being a lovable character. His one-liners, his little chats with the bad guys on FaceTime, they're all good. Where's everyone going? Bingo. Your right hand comes off. All of these great lines that I love in Resident Evil 4. But unfortunately, some are missing from the remake, and that is a downside to the remake. The sort of bringing the horror closer to you, and this one really focuses more on panic and high intensity situations where you can't move because you're hunkering down. When you're like, okay, I'm going to stand and shoot, you are standing and shooting. You can't move at the same time. And even if you cancel your movement, you can't get away quickly. If you're like, oh, I need to back up, it's not a simple start backing up and shooting. You have to lower your weapon. You have to do a quick turn if you know about the quick turn, or you turn around slowly if you don't, and then you start sprinting away. It's not a quick process to change what you're doing, to be like, oh, I need to stop shooting now and run away. And they lean into that with the gameplay. They're aware, obviously, when they're making it, that this is a limitation of the time, and they play into it, and it makes it even more panic-inducing. You need to make a decision. You need to either stand and shoot, or you need to run away. You need to make that decision quickly, or you're going to be punished for doing the wrong one too late. That's Resident Evil 4's gameplay. They introduced the ability to roundhouse kick enemies, melee them, suplex them. I'm still on the fence about something. It is fun, but that combined with the fact that the enemies drop items this game really encourages you to kill everything, and that did bug me to begin with, and it's still to this day. I do like Resident Evil that encourage you to try and only kill the enemies you need to, but this one does encourage you to kill everything because it gives you lots of ammo. It lets you use melee attacks to finish them off, and it gives you ammo back for killing them. It rewards you for killing. None of the previous Resident Evils didn't do that. You kill a zombie, all you've done is lose ammo. Your reward is the fact that that zombie is no longer patrolling that room. In this one, your reward is some money, some ammo, a jewel that you can sell. You're actively rewarded for killing, and that's a whole different experience because now it's incentivizing you to kill stuff. It's not, the reward isn't that this enemy isn't there anymore. The reward is the reward. And that probably comes from the fact that this game is significantly more linear than the last few Resident Evil games. In Resident Evil 1 or 2, and even a bit 3, less so 3, but 1 and 2 specifically, if there's a tight room full of zombies, and you try and run past it, you like take a hit, and you're like, oh, okay, well that's fine. I took one hit and I saved all this time by not killing it. But then you need to go through that corridor 5 or 6 times, and you take a hit each time, you waste a lot of herbs. You should have killed them all that first time. That ammo would have been worth it. So that's the sort of decisions you're making in those older games, whereas sometimes you go through a corridor, like, okay, let's kill these zombies so I don't have to deal with them ever again. And then you never go back through that room, and you're like, oh, I probably should have just taken a hit, or if I could, get around them and take no hits, but taking one hit, use a herb, and I would have saved all that ammo and killing however many zombies there were in that room, and that probably would have been worth it. In Resident Evil 4, there's very little of that, because you don't backtrack, you don't go back through rooms. So I guess there needs to be a bit more of an incentive to kill things. You get money to buy stronger weapons and get ammo to kill more things. Set pieces in this game are great. The Largo boss fight on the boat is fun. The big Salazar statue chasing you is great. Wish that was in the remake. Ashley driving the tractor, I'm less keen on. Krauser's a fantastic character. I love Krauser. He shows up a little too late. Luis is good. Ada's fantastic in this game. This is one of Ada's my favorite appearances of Ada, I would say. She's really good in this game. I love her voice lines. I love seeing her. I love everything about her in this game, except separate ways, which I'll get into in a sec. This game's great. And this game does suffer from one of the problems I talked about earlier with unlockables when we're talking about replayability, which is that when you unlock something for completing it on, say, normal, you don't get your unlockables on a future playthrough on a different difficulty. If you switch to professional, you've lost everything. So if you want to unlock the PRL, you need to start again. If you finished it on normal and got some unlocked, you can't use those on professional to unlock the PRL. If you unlock the hand cannon from Mercenaries, that only carries, you can only pick that up at the end of a run. You can't start the game with that on a fresh save. You have to load a completed save, then you can get the hand cannon. So once again, you do have to do a completely bare run without any of your unlockables. Oh, except the costume. You do get, so there's unlockable costumes in this game, and there's one for Ashley that gives her armor that makes her invincible, and that does really help actually, because then it removes the need for you to protect Ashley throughout the whole game. She can't be picked up by enemies because she's too heavy, and she can't be killed because she's basically bulletproof. Doesn't take any damage in the armor, so there is that. But other than that, no, you don't get Matilda, you don't get the infinite rocket launcher. That'd make it a bit too easy. I can understand why you wouldn't get that. You don't get the hand cannon. That's a bit of a shame. Other than that, replayability comes from the fact that the gameplay is so good. For the time, it probably feels a bit janky now, but at the time, the replayability of this game was just entirely from the fact that the game was just fun to play. And Mercenary was a bit hectic because you couldn't move. I feel like Mercenaries wasn't the best in this version. One of my least favourite iterations of Mercenaries, actually. Well, the game modes were. So there's Mercenaries, and then there's Separate Ways. And Separate Ways in this isn't as good. It's, as the remake, I mean, it's fine. It's okay. You play through a lot of the same areas that you played through as Leon. The only one you don't, basically, is the ship level. I think it's the 4th level, where you're sort of infiltrating and blowing up a ship. And God, that is awful. There's so many turrets. They're constantly shooting at you, and you've got to shoot back on your own turrets. And I just don't like that. The best bit of Separate Ways is the last boss, I think. Oh, other than just seeing Ada's story, the best bit is the Sadler boss fight. You get a whole new boss fight where you fight Sadler in his human form, which wasn't in Resident Evil 4 base game, and I think that boss fight's quite well designed. I enjoyed that boss fight as Ada. You get some new guns, you get an explosive crossbow, you get a shotgun that's a bit different to any of the ones Leon gets. Overall, it's fine. The main reason you're doing this is the unlockables for the main game, which I think is the Mafia costume for Leon and the armor costume for Ashley, which you do want for doing professional runs. Oh, also, speaking of Ashley, it's fun to make fun of Ashley. Leon, help! And saying she's annoying. I don't think she's that annoying, really. It's fun to play into the joke and the bit. But Ashley, actually, in this game, doesn't talk enough, in my opinion. She kind of only talks in cutscenes and in very particular scripted moments where she's like, look, there's a crane over there. And like just like informational bits for the player more than anything. outside of cutscenes. In cutscenes, she's great. But I wish she spoke, like Leon has spoke more, which they do in the remake. I love that they have their little chats and they say little things to her, like after each fight, he's like, "Are you okay?" And then she'll be like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like, all these little things, they make such a difference, making her feel like a real character. The fact that she's just like an unspoken NPC that's just stood behind you for half the game and occasionally shouts Leon help when she gets grabbed, kind of takes away from her being a character. She does just feel a bit of an objective, just like a thing you have to carry around with you that doesn't have a personality a lot of the time. I think that's one thing the remake does improve on. Other game modes, Assignment Ada. It's not the greatest. You play as Ada. She's in quite a cool costume, like a spy suit. And she's got, this one was in the GameCube version. Separate Ways wasn't, but this was. And you got to find 5 Plaga samples, and then on the island, you're playing, it's just on the island section of the game. You find 5 Plaga samples, and you got to kill Krauser and get out. And that's it. It's pretty quick, do it in one sitting, usually. And that unlocks you the Chicago typewriter in Separate Ways. And it's good. It's worth it just for that. With all that said about Resident Evil 4, I love Resident Evil 4. I at first didn't like it as much as the originals because I liked zombies more than Ganado. I liked the bright colors of the older Resident Evil games. I didn't like and I still don't really like the sort of browny, colorless filter they've got over the whole game. I think it does take away from it. So I'm going to put this just above Resident Evil original, but not quite as good as the original 3 Resident Evil games. I know maybe it looks weird to put Resident Evil 4 below Deadly Silence, and that does kind of feel weird for me, but Resident Evil Deadly Silence, Resident Evil Director's Cut, and Resident Evil 1, they're all just kind of the same game. I feel it would feel weirder to be like, oh, Deadly Silence is all the way down here, when it's just the same game as Resident Evil 1. The only difference is you're playing it on a console that's not as good to play it on. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, Deadly Silence has some pretty cool costumes. Unlockable costumes are in the original. I like those. That's Resident Evil 4. Let's go back a bit, shall we? Let's go back to Resident Evil 0. Now, Resident Evil 0 has a lot in common with Resident Evil 1 Remake. It plays very similarly. It's the same sort of art direction, same sort of color schemes, which in my opinion is a bad thing. I do think the environment's a little dry in this one as well. Comparing to Resident Evil 1 Remake is also, and should be, a very good thing. I think the survival horror elements are fantastic. I think it's a tough game. I think the ammo conservation is great. Not the item management. We'll get to that in a second. There's a lot of things to say about Resident Evil 0. Pretty much the good things are already said about Resident Evil 1 Remake. Resident Evil 1 Remake is a good game. It's a great game. I feel like I slagged it off a little too much. I think I was a little too mean to it when I was talking about it. It's obviously a fantastic game. I didn't even talk about the introduction of defense items, which come back in 2 Remake, which are great. Resident Evil 0 doesn't have those, actually. It doesn't have the defense item. It plays very similarly. It's a very similar game. If you like Resident Evil 1, and you can handle the things I'm about to talk about that make 0 worse, they're there. You'd like Resident Evil 0. And unfortunately, they could have just made it as, I think, without the things I'm about to talk about, things I'm about to say that are bad about Resident Evil 0, I think if you didn't have those, it would be right here, right next to Resident Evil 1. They'd all be pretty much as good as Resident Evil 1. Maybe just slightly under because the story's not quite as interesting. And we've got Billy. People love Billy. I'm not personally a huge fan of Billy, but I do like Rebecca. I think Rebecca's great, and I like seeing her come into her own a little bit here. I do find it strange that she kind of becomes a badass in Resident Evil 0, just to go back to being kind of scared in Resident Evil 1. But anyway, Resident Evil 0 has some very serious item management problems. The main one being no item boxes. And this is the biggest problem with the game overall. In this game, you don't use item boxes. You just drop items on the ground. And you've got to remember where you dropped them, or check on the map. It does say on the map. And then run back to them and get them whenever you want them. And this is a terrible experience for the player, especially if it's your first playthrough, but even when it's not your first playthrough, because I'm sure most people played this game the same way I did, and left most of their items in the main hall. And there is a point in the game where you need to progress, where you're leaving behind the main mansion, and you're moving on to the lab section, and you need to ferry all of the items you want from the main hall to your next main room, or deal with the fact that you're going to be running back a long way for a while and eventually not able to get back there. I don't think. Yeah, actually, I think you might be able to get back there. I don't think the game's so harsh that it completely locks you out, because even on the train, when the train crashes, it throws all of the items out into the room where the train crashes, so that you have all your items there. And that is this game's biggest problem. The other problem with it, which I think some people might be okay with, the character switching. So you have 2 characters. you control throughout most of this game, and you can switch between them whenever you want, Billy and Rebecca. They only have 6 inventory slots each, so they can't carry much, but it doesn't mean you're carrying 12 things in total. But it's still annoying to trade and fiddle things around, and there are lots of items in this game that take up 2 inventory slots. One of them being the grapple hook launcher, which you need a lot of times in this game. You need that. It's important to get through so many areas. It's annoying that you need to carry around such a big item all the time. There are other things about these characters that are different that the game doesn't even tell you. It doesn't tell you that Billy is better with guns. It doesn't tell you that Rebecca is better with the Molotovs, and that makes fighting the leech guys, which are one of the hardest enemies in the game, even harder, because you think, oh, I'll do it with Billy because he's got more health, so he's probably better. He's worse with the Molotovs. You don't want to use Billy to use the Molotovs. Things like that the game doesn't tell you, that makes it harder for your first experience. On top of it being like a typical Resident Evil game, you could get lost in your first playthrough. You might not know what you're doing. It depends how it goes for you. Sometimes you can be like me, you can get a pretty smooth first playthrough just because whether it's through experience or whether it was just that I got lucky, but I managed to get through it not too bad. But some people, you make some wrong decisions, you go the wrong way, you end up trapped, you need to fight the Mimicry Marcus, and you do it without the Molotovs. You don't realize you need to use the Molotovs. You don't realize Rebecca's better with the Molotovs, and it consumes all your ammo. You have a miserable time for the rest of the game. There's so many things that could go wrong when you're playing this for the first time. It's a shame, because it's a really good Resident Evil game other than that. I'm also not a big fan of the enemy designs in this one. There's a big emphasis on just big animal, which is my least favorite type of enemy design in Resident Evil. I hate when they just take an insect or an animal and just make it bigger, and they're like, that's an enemy. I think that's the laziest design, so there's a lot of that in there, which I'm not a big fan of. But other than that, yeah, it's a good game. It's fun. You learn a bit more about founders of Umbrella, a bit more about William Birkin and Albert Wesker's history, and you revisit the Resident Evil 2 lab, which is kind of cool, seeing it in updated graphics. And the prototype T001 Tyrant, that's cool to see as well. I like this game. It's not as good as any of the games we've got on there. Well, it's obviously better than Survival Unit. It's not as good as those top games. It doesn't quite fit into an S rank for me, but I think it is just below. It's a shame that it could be so much better with just some small changes. Just put an item box in there. And to be honest, the character switching probably not as clunky if there was an item box. You just get to your next item box and you'd have an item. There is an item box mod for this game. Makes the typewriters work like item boxes as well, which I do need to try. And then maybe I'll have some different things to say about Resident Evil 0 after I've played that. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Resident Evil 0. It's good, but it's not great. Let's go up the main lines. Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 is, for some people, where the franchise started going downhill, and for others, it's one of the best Resident Evil games ever made. Depending on who you talk to, you're going to get a very different opinion of Resident Evil 5, and that's because Resident Evil 5 is a really fun co-op game to play with a friend. It's great to play through with a friend. For a lot of people on console especially, it was probably one of the first co-op games they played, because it came out so early in that sort of Xbox 360, PS3 era, that co-op games weren't a huge thing yet. PS2 co-op games, sure, they existed. You played them split screen, but this was one of the first games where you could just load up a game, invite one of your friends, and they just join you and you play through a whole campaign together and have a great time. And I think a lot of people have memories of that. It's got good weapon upgrade systems. It's got a lot of weapons. It's got a lot of versions of different weapons. That's something Resident Evil 4 had that I didn't mention. It has got different versions of like different shotguns, different pistols. Resident Evil 5 has it too. It has an even wider variety of things. It has a really fun mercenaries mode. It's the first one where it doesn't have tank controls. The mercenary mode is great. You can play on your own, play with people. Tank controls are gone. You can move left and right, which I remember I had to get used to the first time I played it. I wasn't ready for that. There's unlockable costumes. You can get ammo for every weapon, so there's great unlockables. It's a point shot, which is my favorite system of unlockables in Resident Evil. We'll get to that as well in a second. Sheva's an interesting character. I wish Sheva took more of the spotlight in Resident Evil 5. I think it's a shame that Chris is the main character from the start. I would love it if Sheva was the main character and Chris was just support for most of the game, right up until they discover Jill might be alive. And then at that point, then maybe Chris can take a bigger role. But I would love it if Sheva was the main focus for the first half of the game. And this game had some DLCs, and one of them's really good. There are others, unfortunately. We got Wesker at his best in Resident Evil 5. Wesker was absolutely at his best in this game. This is peak Albert Wesker. We got some really cool boss fights, and we've also got Ouroboros Mokono, which is one of the worst boss fights in the franchise. There's so much to talk about in Resident Evil 5, and I'm probably not going to cover all of it because I want to get through all of these games. There's still a lot to get through, but Resident Evil 5 is a fun co-op game. It's got some interesting and fun environments. It's still got a bit of the colorless filter, which I'm a bit still a bit sad about, but it's not as bad as Resident Evil 4's or Resident Evil 1 remakes. Colorlessness. It just looks all kind of yellow, which it doesn't need to. You start, you settle in Africa. You start in the village. You go to the sort of tribal area, and then you go to like the military zones, and it's fun all the way through. And there's some really cool boss fights when you're like, you got to trap the Ouroboros guy in the fire thing and burn him, or if you kill him without that, then you get an extra jewel. And you got the big axe guy. Yeah, he's iconic. He's such a cool design with his big axe. One side looks like a meat pulverizer, like a hammer with spikes on. The other side's like a big axe. There's the big spider thing. There's the big spider thing on the elevator. There's the big flying guy. Some really cool bosses. Wesker, having to like sneak up on Wesker to fire a rocket, and he catches the rocket. That's cool. There's so many cool things to do, and to experience it with a friend is a big part of this game. And then you go away, you buy new weapons, you upgrade the ones you love. Once upgraded fully, you unlock the ability to buy infinite ammo with them with points, and I love the idea of a point shop. This game doesn't do it the best, but the idea you pick your unlockables is such a better way of doing it, I think, than locking specific unlockables behind specific challenges. Do a challenge, get some points, then you go decide where you want to spend it, on what you want to do. Do you want to buy some costumes? Do you want to buy some infinite ammo? Do you want to buy some models? Choose what you want to do with your unlockables, and I think that's great. There's also a system where if you upgrade the worst version of each weapon type, like the worst pistol, the worst shotgun, the worst submachine gun, and I'm going to say now, they're not always the worst, but like the first one you get and the game kind of treats as the worst, you unlock the best version. So you upgrade the Ithaca shotgun, all the way to max, you unlock the Hydra to buy a triple barreled shotgun. That's great. You upgrade the VZ61, I think it's a Scorpion, but I think they call it the VZ61 or something. Upgrade that to maximum, you unlock a minigun for Chris with infinite ammo. You upgrade the first Magnum, Smith & Wesson, can't remember, you unlock the hand cannon. This game's got a lot of things to it, a lot of replayability. It's got 4 difficulties, and the top one, everything one-shots you to the point of dying, so someone can still res you. So it doesn't like end the game, someone can still res you. And that's quite fun. I've played through that with a couple of people, and we've managed to get through it, and it's tough, but it's fun. Seeing Jill again, seeing her evil, that's really cool. Mercenaries is really fun. Going for high scores on that Mercenaries. It's got the same, also the whole game's got the same melee combat system of 4, where you stagger an enemy and then you can punch them, kick them, do something. And every character in the game, including Mercenaries and the other DLC modes, have their own unique move set. Like they have different attacks, which was the same Resident Evil 4, but there's way more characters. Mercenaries has such a large roster of characters in this one. It's got 3 different Chris's, like different costumes that have different weapons, 3 different Shevers, 2 different Jills, and 2 different Weskers, and they're my favorite. I like playing as Wesker stars. And then if you get the DLCs, you've got 2 extra Chris's, 2 extra Shevers, you've got Josh, you've got Excella, you've got Barry and Rebecca from Resident Evil 1. And then they've all got their own moves as well. It's really cool, it's really fun, it's really interesting to try and get high scores on every map. There's every character. There's also about 8 maps or so, like there's way more than there was in Resident Evil 4. You could be playing that for ages. Now, moving on to the DLCs, let's talk about Lost in Nightmares first. I love Lost in Nightmares. It's actually my favourite part of Resident Evil 5, I think. I love it. It really does a good job of bringing it back to survival horror. It does a good job of being a bit scary. It gives you puzzles to do throughout. You're playing as Chris and Jill going through a mansion. That's what we've always wanted, right? Chris and Jill, the main 2, at that point, definitely like the main 2 characters of the franchise, going through Spencer's mansion. That's what we've wanted to see as a co-op game. That's perfect. Yeah, there could have been a bit more enemy variety in it. I do agree that it could have been a bit more. There could have been a little bit more shooting and action. And in fact, actually, if you play it on normal difficulty or lower, no enemies show up in the mansion. I don't think. I think it's only hard mode or higher that they show up in the mansion. Or at least not until much later in the mansion, maybe. But I think on normal and easy, they might only show up once you start going underground. So yeah, it's definitely better on hard and professional. And the bit on the ground where you gotta like drop spikes on them, it's great. Desperate Escape, where you're playing as Jill and Josh, like escaping basically, and going and getting the helicopter that they then later pick up Chris and Sheva with when they're in the volcano. It's not great. I don't like playing through Desperate Escape. It's just too constant enemy spawns. There's nothing to unlock. You just forget what weapons you find, and the last fight just takes a little bit too long on there, and it's all kind of samey. And Josh and Jill are just not really characters that have any sort of interest in each other. They don't have any good chemistry. They kind of just speak to each other like soldiers talking to each other, which is what they are. to be fair. They've got no personal connection. Nothing really interesting happens between them. Desperate Escape could have been better in my opinion. But even that's not as bad as the last DLC, which is Versus modes. And the Versus modes of Resident Evil 5, they're not fun, in my opinion. I don't know if anyone else disagrees. I'd like to hear if you do. But no interest for me on the Versus modes. They're just... That game wasn't built for PvP. That game was built to play through as a co-op game, and it feels strange to be playing on the Mercenaries maps and just trying to shoot what look like co-op partners. I'm not a PvP game fan in general anyway, but I think that game also did quite poorly. So is Resident Evil 5, and I'm going to put that above 0. I think it's better than 0. I don't think it's quite as good as any of these classic games. Wesker carrying hard as well, with Wesker being the enemy in that game, carrying that up that high. It would be down to me if it wasn't for Wesker being so good and the boss fights being so fun. And it being co-op, actually. Actually, co-op is what's carrying it hard. The co-op's bringing it up there. So that's Resident Evil 5. Let's finish up the mainline, the numbered titles before the RE engine. Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6. Now this is where the franchise dropped off for a lot of people, and I can see why. This game pivoted from being an action horror like Resident Evil 5 and 4 to just being a straight up action game. There is almost no horror in this game except maybe the very start of Leon's campaign and maybe a little bit of Ada's, but not really, to be honest. I wouldn't say any of it's horror. They introduced some new mechanics in this. You can just melee. You don't have to stagger an enemy to melee attack them. You can just go ahead and start wheeling on them. You can, most of the fodder enemies, you can just start punching and then they're staggered and then you can do a finisher on them. You can dive around. You jump to the left, jump to the right, jump back and forward, be shooting in mid-air while you do it. This game is not a horror game. You are a powerhouse. You are jumping around, shooting in midair, and you are killing enemies with your bare hands. And this is one thing I think people don't always realize. Resident Evil is at its best when your advantage is your range. The zombies are tough. The zombies or enemies are resilient. They take a lot of bullets to put down compared to a person. Your advantage is the fact that you can hit them from a range and they need to get to you. In Resident Evil 6, even when they get to you, you can just melee attack them. And furthermore, a lot of the enemies that aren't zombies, like the Juavo and things, they're just shooting back. They just got guns. You're here, set behind cover, and you're firing at them, and they're firing at you. This is a bit more of a cover-based shooter. It's an action game. Some of the boss fights are cool. I do think some of the boss fights are cool. There's no inventory management. You just carry everything. Oh, okay. There's very limited inventory management. You carry all your guns. Your key items go into a separate slot that is unlimited. The only thing that you have to manage is your grenades and your healing. Somewhat share an inventory. Do put your healing to a little tablet box. So all the herbs you make go into a little box, so then they just eat the tablets. So that's healing only. But while they're in your inventory, first aid sprays and untableted herbs take up the same slots as your grenades, and that's kind of the only management you have to do, and you've still got about 10 slots for that when you know you've also got all your guns and the key items anyway, so you don't have to consider those. The story's a bit all over the place. There's 4 separate campaigns. One of them is Leon's with Helena, one of them is Chris's with Piers, one of them is a new character called Jake, who is Wesker's son, who you do with Sherry Birkin, which I do think that's kind of cool. They were lab partners in Umbrella, and now their children are working together. And then you've got Ada, who is supposed to be on her own, but if you want to play with a friend, they can play as Agent, who is non-canon. He just kind of appears and disappears for cutscenes. This game, it's a fun game to play with friends. It's a fun game. I don't want to say it's not a fun game. It's a fun game. It doesn't feel like much of a Resident Evil game, if I'm being completely honest, apart from the characters being some of the characters we recognize. I would say Leon's campaign's probably the best one of them. There are some good bits in all of them. I actually really like a lot of Jake's campaign, where you're running from the Ustanat. He's changing his arm constantly throughout. So he starts with a big claw where he can grab you, then he gets like a drill and you've got to hide in bins, and otherwise he just one-shots you with the drill. And then you have like a drill fight, like you're on like a big drill machine and he's like stopping it, and that's kind of fun. It's fun. It's a bit excessive, it's over the top, but so is Resident Evil is over the top sometimes. That's fine. He gets a big like shotgun grenade launcher thing. I can't remember which one it is. It's grenade launcher or a shotgun. It's a gun though. He's cool. I like him. I like that he gets a big ball at the end. I think his fight's good, kind of reminiscent of the last fight with Wesker in Lava as well. And then you used to have a fist fight with him as Jake, and that's cool. Oh, and he gets a minigun when you fight him on a helicopter. I think they went overboard with the action in this game. The crossing over of campaigns is good as well. If you're playing as Chris with a friend who's playing as Piers, and there's a bit where the campaign of Leon and Helena cross over, there'll be some bits where another pair of people playing it online will cross over with you, and you're all four of you playing together for a bit, and just then you separate again. There are times when they all cross over with each other and you're playing with other people, and there's some bits where it's a bit more competitive, where there's one bit where Leon and Helena are trying to get through like a security system, and Chris and Piers are also trying to get through it, and if one of you gets through it first, it makes it harder for the other people. So there's a little bit of a competition there, which is kind of interesting. It's not like direct competitiveness, but it's like who gets there first gets a little bit of a reward. It's fun. It's good. There's also an agent hunt mode where you can join someone else's campaign as one of the monsters and try and attack them. That's a bit less good, but the Mercenaries is quite fun as well, because Mercenaries is a bit more action heavy in all the games, and this gameplay leans into it a little bit. I still think I prefer Resident Evil 5's Mercenaries. Resident Evil 6's Mercenaries is fun to play as well, and you've got a whole host of characters, and they've got all basically all the people from the campaign. That's a lot of people, because there's so many different campaigns with 2 different characters each, and they all have at least one alternative costume, where they've got different weapon loadouts as well. So there's a lot of loadouts, there's quite a lot of different maps. Quite fun to play co-op. They're okay to play single player, but they're more fun in co-op. The multiplayer modes in this one are much better than 5. Sure, there are some versus modes that aren't great, but then there's a mode where you're both playing like single player Mercenaries maps simultaneously, not on the same map, but you're playing it simultaneously, and when you get a bunch of combo, you're sending enemies over to the other person. That's really fun. I love that sort of thing, actually. That's a good kind of competitive Mercenaries mode. Then you've got one, if you do want to do a PvP mode, there's one where someone's playing as the Usternak and they're chasing them down. You can find different arm attachments and upgrades, and you're grabbing them with that. That's much more fun than just shooting at each other as playable human characters. I think there's interesting stuff to do there, but overall, it doesn't feel like much of a Resident Evil game. It's a bit too action heavy. Some of the boss fights are cool. I think I did say that, but your snack fights are cool. There's a fight with Derek, who turns into a big, kind of almost looks like a T-Rex sort of monster. And also, not a big fan of the Chaos fight, actually. I don't like Chaos as much. Oh, and the Ogreman, the big, like, ogre guys. They're quite fun to fight, and you'll kind of jump on their back and stab them, yeah. Resident Evil 6. Ultimately, it's a fun game to play with a friend. It's a fun game to play on your own a little bit. I'm going to put it under 5 and 0, though. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. Resident Evil, it needed saving, but it wasn't completely dead yet. Like, it was 6 was going downhill, but I don't think it hit rock bottom. I don't think it completely crashed out. I think it was just, it needed a bit of help, and then we had 7, which saved it. Okay, before we move on to the RE engine, let's go back a bit, and let's talk about some of the canon spin-off. I don't really like calling them, like Code Veronica, I don't really like calling that spin-off. It's important to the story. But yeah, let's go to some of these unnumbered games. Code Veronica X. I never played the original Code Veronica on whatever Sega console that was on. I don't remember which one. I did play Code Veronica X on PS2, and I wasn't the biggest fan, and to this day I'm still not the biggest fan of Code Veronica. I think this game doesn't do backtracking well. I think Resident Evil 1 and 2 and 3 a little bit do backtracking phenomenally well. I like backtracking in a game, but I think Code Veronica does it in a bit more of a uninteresting way. It feels a bit more of a chore to be running back and forth through some of the areas of Code Veronica, because you're backtracking a lot as Claire, and then you're doing it again as Chris. Like, the areas you've been backtracking through a bunch, you do the same again as Chris. I've got problems with Code Veronica. I do think the atmosphere is good. I love the sort of castle-y bit. I can't remember what the area is called, but you kind of go off and there's some good music in the area. It's very atmospheric. It kind of looks like almost like where a vampire would live. I love that bit. It kind of looks like a horror section of the game. I do actually like exploring the island. I love when you're first playing it through as Claire. Yeah, there's a bit of backtracking I do find annoying, and there are some annoying enemies like the Bandersnatch who have really long arms. But it's like the other Resident Evils, right? Like you're looking for keys, you're running back and forth, you've got save rooms. The first box being so far into the game is a bit annoying. It takes, like, on your first playthrough, that might be like an hour in, 40 minutes to an hour into the game. On subsequent playthroughs, yeah, it's a bit quicker, but getting to your first box takes a while. Personally, I find Steve to be a very annoying character. I don't like Steve at all. I hate that Claire almost falls in love with him. I think Claire's way better than that. I don't think she'd fall in love with Steve. Just some weird dude on whatever. Their relationship was a mess. At least he's dead now. All of that said, so I do like that, and the backtrack is a bit annoying. And then you go to the base, and I think the Arctic base is just tedious. I don't like the layout of it. I don't like the look of it. I don't like anything about the Arctic base, really. I hate that section of the game. And I think that's where I checked out my first playthrough a little bit. And it's often where I kind of get to, if I'm replaying Code Veronica, there are definitely times where I get to the Arctic base and I'm like, I'll save it here and come back later, and then I don't come back later. There's only one unlockable in Code Veronica X, which is Infinite Rocket Launcher. Complete under 5 hours, no first aid sprays, limited saves, can't remember how many. And playing through the game like that just makes it worse. It just, like, trying to do that challenge is not a fun challenge for Code Veronica. It just makes what is already a bit of a tedious game that's not terrible just even more annoying. And you get the Infinite Rocket Launcher and there's no other unlockables for the main game. There's nothing else you can do to help you with this. There's no, like, you can't unlock something a little bit better first to help you out with it. Nothing. There's just one unlockable, and I think that's a real shame for this game. I think that's actually a big problem with this game compared to the others. It does have a battle mode, and the battle mode is a bit of fun. It's not the greatest, but it's a bit of fun. You start off, I think, with Claire and Steve. You can unlock, I think you unlock Chris and, is his name Rodrigo? The guy at the start who lets you out of the prison. I think you unlock him as well as an extra character. I think he only has a knife, but Chris has some cool weapons, and it's a bit of fun. You can unlock the linear launcher from the end of the game for that, but it's okay. Overall, Code Veronica is fine. I know this is very much a love it or hate it game. Some people think it's the best Resident Evil ever made, and I totally see that. I see that if the things that I didn't like about it aren't really a problem for you, and if you don't mind the fact that, like, there's only really one unlockable for this, then this has everything a Resident Evil game you want out of a survival horror Resident Evil game, and it goes straight to the top of your list. I can also see why you think this game could be slow and boring and characters are annoying and you put it at the bottom of your list. I don't think it belongs in either of those spots. I think it goes right here in the middle. I still love to play the game, but it's just not as good as some of the others. I think I prefer the 6. I think I prefer the 6. So I'll put it there. Kind of on those two games kind of a similar level for me for completely different reasons, weirdly. Too fast, too slow. But they're about the same. And then let's do the Revelations games, because the Revelations games are also canon and unnumbered. So Revelations 1. I am mostly reviewing the campaign of these games. I will talk a bit about raid mode, which I did play a fair amount on both of them, but I'm mostly reviewing the single player game of this. So I first played this on the 3DS when it came out. It was a 3DS exclusive when it launched, and I did play it on the 3DS, and I actually didn't really like it very much when I first played it, but I think that's just because I didn't really like playing games on a DS. Same with Deadly Silence, actually. I liked the game, but I didn't like playing it on a DS, because I liked it because it's Resident Evil 1. But anyway, Revelations on the 3DS, it kind of feels like it plays like a lot of Resident Evil 6, but as an actual survival horror game. And to be honest, that's what we wanted from Resident Evil 6. Like, if it doesn't have the jumping around and stuff, but it kind of feels like it's that same sort of movement, but it's a survival horror game. I don't know why they didn't make a co-op, because I think Parker's always with you. Or if you're playing as Chris, you've got Jessica. And you know what? Unpopular opinion, Jessica's cool. I like Jessica. I mean, okay, she's a bad guy, she's a traitor, she manipulates you, but she's a cool bad guy. I like Jessica. I think I like her weird costume design as well. I know it's kind of strange, but I think it's really cool. It's weird. It's different. It's asymmetric. I love asymmetry in design. So that's why I like the tyrants, right? Where they've got one big arm or something. I love asymmetric designs. I like her costume design. I like everyone's got like their own unique wetsuit. Like, and they're kind of like, Jill's got her blue one, Rachel's got her orange one, Jessica's got her purple one. And I think all of them look great. They all look, they don't just like a boring wetsuit, they've all got like big old oxygen tanks on the back, or they've got like, Jordan's got like hexagon patterns. Like, they're all kind of fun costume design in that game. And I like it. I like the campaign. Raid mode is a bit of fun to play through with someone as well. I don't know why the campaign wasn't co-op on that one, to be honest, but I feel like it could have been. Inventory management. The inventory in Revelations, that's not it. In Resident Evil Revelations, your inventory management is one of the worst they've done in the game. You just have like a weapon box that only holds weapons and parts for weapons and things, and you just have key items on you. You just have healing items on you. They're just kind of on your main screen. Also, I think you got to scan for points. You got to scan these like bits of biomatter with the scanny thing, and that's annoying, trying to find all those just to get some points. It's all minor parts of the game. The game gets better. I don't really like the environments. This is a bit of a personal thing. I'm not really a big fan of the interior of like a cruise ship environment, because the game's set on like a ship for most of it, and then you switch to Chris, and he's also on what you think is the same ship, but it's actually just like a twin ship and their ships look identical and they're same layout. You get to the same room as both, and you realize they're not in the same place because they're not on the same ship, even though they're in the same room on the twin ships. I like that environment personally. I'm not going to dock it down for that though, because that's kind of just a personal thing, and it doesn't really affect it too much. It does add to it's like a good horror setting. And the enemy, the ooze design enemies, it's kind of, I kind of like it thematically, but at the same time, like, it's got the same sort of problem of Resident Evil 7 where all of the enemies are an ooze enemy. Like, that's all the enemies are more than. I guess there are some other ones like hunters and stuff, but they've got their own problems, which we'll get to in a second. A lot of the enemies are ooze enemies in this game, and it's not too bad. They kind of work. I don't hate them, but they're a bit more enemy variety would have been nice. No, actually, talk myself out of it. Enemy design's fine. There's a few oozes, quite a few oozes, and there's also like the piranhas, the hunters. There's a tyrant at the end, T-Abyss virus tyrant. Raid mode in this one isn't too bad. There's some. You basically play through basically campaign levels, but with a friend and without the story in the way. And you pick your characters, and they've got different attributes and things, and you unlock different weapons as you do it. And there's some like kind of legendary weapons to go for that are really good that you really want. And then there's like a ghost ship level right at the end. There's a really long level that goes through most of the ship, and you got to bring your best stuff to get through that because it's quite tough. It's still good though. I like Revelations. Now, if I was done talking Revelations there, which I'm not, I would probably put it up on A rank with Resident Evil 5 and 0, maybe even ahead of 5, maybe ahead of 0, but on A rank. I unfortunately have one more thing to say about Revelations that does bring it down quite a lot. The sections where you're not playing as Jill and Parker, the sections where you're playing as Chris and Jessica aren't too bad, but the bits where you're playing as Keith and Quint are not fun. I don't like them. And even worse, the bits on Terra Grigia where you're playing as Jessica and Parker are just awful. Fighting those hunters, Terra Grigia, I hate that. Those bits of the game, I dread getting to them every time I replay it, and I hate playing through them, especially on high difficulties. I don't want to ever see those bits of the game again. I'd skip them if I could. They are just awful, and they bring this game down to be probably just sit. Yeah, that's where I'm going to put Revelations. I'm leaving it there. Revelations 2, on the other hand. Revelations 2, I loved saying Revelations 2. It kind of reminds me of Evil Within, like in the prisons. And this one's very horror themed. The whole point is that Alex Wesker, who's a cool character that I think should be moved into a main game at some point. I love Alex Wesker as a character. I know I guess she died, but she can come back. They always come back. I love it. I love the enemy designs that are kind of like, they really look like the I can't remember what they're called, like the Taken or something. The enemies in Evil Within, they're like all covered in barbed wire and stuff. That's what these guys look like. They look really cool. They're kind of zombie-like. They're kind of Ganado-like, somewhere in between. And the main bad guys, you gotta scare people to activate the virus. They have to be scared for the virus to activate within them. And I think that is a really cool concept, and it's scary. And then you're playing through the game as well, and I don't like the Barry sections as much. If you're playing through the game as Claire in like the past, Claire and Moira, who is Barry's daughter, and you're trying to escape the island, and then you're playing as Barry in the present day as well, who's like trying to figure out what happened here. He's come back and it's all kind of like everything's already happened, everyone's left, and he's trying to find out what happened to his daughter Claire. It's good. I really like that game. It has raid mode, and the raid mode in Revelations 2 is much more ambitious than the raid mode in Revelations 1. It's got loads of levels, loads of weapons to chase, and the weapon part system, legendary weapons, named versions of weapons. It's got so much for you to try and unlock in Revelations 2's raid mode, and so many things to find. Lots of characters of different abilities, loads of characters. It's too much, and I mean that because I know some people who've been playing this game since launch, pretty much, maybe just a little after launch, and they've been playing raid mode constantly. Like, they still play it to this day. They do the weekend survivor events. They do all kinds of events for Revelations mode. And they've still never seen some of the perfect weapons drop on this. The grind is insane on raid mode for Revelations 2. You are never going to see all of your perfect weapons. To get like I can't think it's 6 of the max amount of slots. To get a max level weapon, which you need to upgrade it. If it's not max level, it's not worth getting. With 6 customizable slots, that's the named version of the best weapon, is unheard of. To even get one of those things is insanely rare. You could be farming for a whole day and not see it spawn. But to get all of those things hit right, and for that weapon to drop, is just, it's not going to happen. You're not going to see these weapons. that you're chasing something that doesn't exist in raid mode in that game. You're chasing, and then even if you do get away, even if somehow this actually happened, like maybe you modded it in, I don't know, maybe you got the lucky person mod and it did drop for you, to get the perfect level 20 versions of the attachments to put on it, that's also not going to happen. You're not going to see the level 20 versions. Like, you have to mix. You have to get like a level 1 and level 1. You mix them to make a level 2. You get level 2 and a level 2. And you can find higher level 1s, but you don't really find anything higher than, I think, like level 13. And then you find a 13, you find a 13, you get a 14. You find another 13, another 13, you get another 14. And these are rare drops. And you mix the 14s together, you get a 50. Now you need to get another 13, another 13, another 13, another 13 to get another 14, another 14, another 15. And then you get a 16. To get them this high, and 13 might even be, you might even drop a 13, I don't remember. The amount of like ones that drop you need to get all the way to a 20 of the perfect versions isn't going to happen, and you're not going to find the weapons to put them on anyway. There is the Revelations 2 raid mode, the grind is too much. You're chasing things that don't exist. You're never going to get perfect weapons, and you're expecting too much from a player on the side mode of a spin-off Resident Evil game. There are people who are doing this. There's not many people who are doing this. That said, I'm mostly reviewing the single player mode here. And as I said, I do like a lot of the single player stuff in this game. I love the aesthetic. I love Alex Wesker, the main bad guy, woman. I love the environment design in this one way more than Revelations 1. I love the enemy designs in this one. I think they're way scarier. They look way better. I don't think it's as good as some of the mainline Resident Evils. I do think I actually prefer this to Resident Evil 6 and Code Veronica, so I'm going to place on the same tier as those, but just a bit higher up. And I think I'm happy with that. So that's some of the canon, not numbered games of Resident Evil. I want to talk about Gaiden. Let's look at Gaiden. This is a Game Boy Color game, which I do have. There it is. Can you see that? Resident Evil Gaiden. Which I play on my Game Boy Advanced, which does play Game Boy Color games. Playing it recently because I hadn't played it in a long time and I wanted to remind myself. I hate this game's combat. I didn't get very far recently. I did play quite a bit of it a long time ago. I have never finished the game. It's one of the few games on this list, one of the few single player games on this list that I haven't finished, but there's a reason for that. The combat is a sliding bar where you have to press it at the right time as it's going across it's like, here is where you hit the zombie. Sliding bar, sliding bar, sliding bar, click here, click here, click here. It's such a weird idea for a Resident Evil game. The story is non-canon. It's Barry and Leon, but it's not a canon story. The gameplay's not fun. The story's not engaging. I don't remember what it is because I don't even really like it. I remember I was reading through it and it's not great. The music's alright for like a Game Boy game. It's fine. And this game is unfortunately, I feel like it should be down here. There's actually a lot of bad games, and I'm kind of thinking, actually, maybe this is E-rank. Maybe there's a few games down here that are pretty bad, which we'll get to. Maybe while we're at the bottom here, we do some of these online games. Let's start with RE-Verse. This came free with Resident Evil Village. That's still too much money. They should have paid me to play this. No, okay, that's a bit of exaggeration. It's not great though. It's a player versus player game. I did about 4 matches of this before thinking this just isn't a great game for me. You start off as a player, like a character like Leon or Jill, and when you're killed, you respawn as a monster. And playing with monsters can be quite fun. I think there's hunters, there's zombies, there's Tyrant, maybe Nemesis. I think there's Nemesis. And it's just a game where it's just kind of like a death match. You're killing other players, respawning the monsters, trying to get kills monsters to come back as a person. It's a pretty simple game loop. I didn't find it very fun. I don't think this RE engine, or many of these engines to be honest, are built well for player versus player games. I don't think they work very well. I don't think they feel like they fit into the franchise. The best thing we got from RE-Verse was there are some really cool wallpapers that look really good of characters we love together in situations, and there are some really cool costumes that I wish were in some of these other games. I wish we could use just some of these costumes in other Resident Evils. Like there's the Hunter Gammas look like ones from 3 Remake, and there's a skin for it that makes it look like the original Resident Evil 3 Hunter Gammas, and they're like so cool. Let us use that in Resident Evil 3 Remake. Let us put those skins on. Same with Tyrant. Makes him look like the original Super Tyrant from Resident Evil 2 at the end when he's been in the lava, and that looks so cool. Let us use that in Resident Evil 2 Remake. I would love some of these skins. I'm sure there are mods that do it, but I'd love to see that officially come to them. I'm going to put this down here. It's nowhere near as bad as Survival Unit because it's not as egregious with the monetization at all, but it's not a fun game to play. There's no fun to be had there, really, in my opinion. And in a similar sort of vein, Resident Evil Resistance. This came free with Resident Evil 3 Remake. I played Resident Evil Resistance a fair bit more than ReVerse. I played a good between 10 and 20 matches of Resident Evil Resistance, I think. I played as the survivors a bit, wasn't really for me. I enjoyed playing the Mastermind a bit more, getting to control Tyrant, getting to control Nemesis, William, setting up traps for people. It's a bit of fun. It gets old very quickly. I think this game would have been better just as a, like, instead of trying to, like, step on Dead by Daylight's toes, which they obviously just gave up on and put Nemesis in Dead by Daylight and Wesker eventually, which work in Dead by Daylight. I'm not against that at all. They should have just made this a co-op game. They should have just, you pick your 4 hero characters and you go through levels similar to the ones that you went through in that, maybe make them a bit longer and put more puzzles to solve in. Take, like, there's quite a lot of pressure to get through it quickly, right? Remove that. Make it so there's more, spend more time trying to figure out these puzzles, spend more time trying to figure out what's going on, spend more time fighting the enemies, have them not spawn by another player, have them set enemies depending on difficulties you pick, and play a bit like an Outbreak game, and this would have been a much better game in my opinion. As it is, yeah, it's still going to go on the bottom rank, unfortunately. It's better than ReVerse and Survival Unit by a long way, but it's still not great. And to round it off with these not so great multiplayer games, let's talk about Umbrella Corps. I have been playing this again recently because there is a single player to this, and it's one of the... So Gaiden and Umbrella Corps are the only ones that have a single player mode that I haven't finished. Umbrella Corps, I was trying to finish it, and guess what? I couldn't. It's so bad. The movement in this game feels terrible. You feel like a camera strapped to the side of your character that flies around. There's no feeling of actual movement. You're just kind of floating around with a character strapped to the side of you. The guy's holding the gun to the side of his head like this, not actually like in front of his face because that's where your camera is. It feels so strange to play. There's like a weird hook melee attack. I was playing through this and I got to the Raccoon City section, which is about like 12 levels in. I've played a fair few levels of it, and it didn't get better. It was just getting harder. Things like when the birds attack you, they attack your character. Like, this is just an example of some of the bad game design in this. The crows will come down, they'll attack your character. Your camera's to the side of your character with the gun. So if you rotate to shoot this crow, the crow just is like, it's here, just hitting you over and over. It rotates with you. You can't aim at it. You can't hit it. It's not good. It's a terrible game. And all these online games are shut down now. These ones, Resistance, ReVerse, and Umbrella Corps, and that's the way it kind of needs to be. The gunplay feels awful. The melee attack hook thing feels terrible. The movement is awful. This game, even if I liked player versus player games, I wouldn't go anywhere near this game. The single player is also just multiplayer matches without other people and with a little bit of text in between. This game is technically apparently canon and kind of implies that Wesker might still be alive. I kind of just wish it'd be forgotten about. This is better than Survival Unit just simply because there's not as much monetization, but the gameplay is just as terrible. I mean, they're completely different gameplay, but they're both equally not fun to play. Now we've got those games out of the way, some of the worst Resident Evil games ever made, let's bring these up a bit. Let's do the light gun games. The light gun games are fun to talk about because I think a lot of people don't even know these exist. You talk about the first-person shooter games, they think of Umbrella Chronicles, Darkside Chronicles on the Wii, but there were light gun games that you played on the PS1 or the PS2 with a light gun, or you can play with the controller. I played Survivor with a light gun. I don't think I played Survivor 2 or Dead Aim with a light gun. Let's start with Survivor first. This game, it's not the greatest. It's probably my least favourite of the Survivor games. It's interesting that it has branching paths. You can go down one of 3 routes, I think, to get different endings and see different environments. And there's a cool enemy type called the Cleaners. I think they're called the Cleaners. They kind of look like Hunk's team, but they're biologically engineered, so they've got like long arms, like a gorilla sort of. It's fine. With a light gun, it's better. With a light gun, it's much better. I've played with a controller more recently because I was just my computer, and light guns don't really work with modern day TVs anyway. I don't have a CRT, unfortunately. So, well, I do still have the light guns. I do have the light guns, but I don't have a CRT. I play with a controller. It's alright. The environments are cool, and the enemies are cool. The Tyrant boss at the end was quite a cool fight. You do see a lot of T-103 Tyrants from Resident Evil 2, which I think is a bit strange, but whatever. It's fine. I haven't played it much. I think I've played through overall each of the paths, most of them once, maybe one of them twice, and that's kind of all I've done because I didn't really want to come back to it. So I'm going to put this, it's ahead of Gaiden because I have finished it and it was alright, but it wasn't a great game by any means. Survivor 2 on the other hand, I think this might be a bit of a hot take. I think this game is a bit underrated. I like Survivor 2. I think when I first played it, now this is a crazy take, and I don't hold this opinion anymore, but when I first played it, I enjoyed this more than Code Veronica X. I thought this was a more fun way to go through the events of Code Veronica. Now, I don't hold that opinion anymore. That has changed. That was when I was a child, and I liked the shooting in it. I love, like, Nemesis is my favorite character, which is why three originals so high up there. And they added Nemesis to this game. I just love seeing Nemesis again. So every level is on a timer, which is actually a bad thing, if I'm being honest. That's a point down for it. But when the timer runs out, you don't die, you don't lose. Nemesis just appears and starts chasing around the level. And he's a unique intro cutscene for every level. Every level he comes in through a different way, and it's really that's really cool. I think it is just a first-person shooter set in the environments of Code Veronica with a boss at the end of each level. There is no dialogue. I don't know why there is no dialogue. I mean, sorry, it's not there's no dialogue. There's no voice acting. There is dialogue between the characters, but it's all written. You got to read it all. I don't know why. Some of the lines could probably be taken straight from Code Veronica X, but they're not. There's also a bunch of extra modes. There's a battle mode or arcade mode, battle mode. There's like a leech mode where you just gotta kill leeches. There's a bunch of stuff to play. I didn't play everything. I liked playing the campaign. I mean, I did play everything at least once, but I didn't like unlock everything. I didn't do all the levels of leech mode. I didn't do all the levels of battle mode. But I did play through the campaign a few times, and I had a good time. It takes a strange turn from level 4. Level 4, the timer starts at 0. Nemesis bashes through the wall with the first cutscene, and he's chasing you that whole level. It's just a Nemesis chase level. And this game takes a completely different turn to Code Veronica, because there's not really a story to it. It's just a bit of fun. And you gotta fight Nemesis with the linear launcher for some reason. I don't know why, but I had a good time doing it. I think Resident Evil Survivor 2 is actually a bit better than Survivor. I'm gonna put it D rank up here. Last light gun game, Dead Aim. I've never played this with a light gun. And I can't imagine I would want to all too much, because this game is a weird blend of the third person, sort of almost Resident Evil 4 style gameplay and first person shooter style gameplay, where it's still tank controls. You can strafe while walking if you hold buttons down. It doesn't feel natural. And then when you shoot, it goes into first person to shoot, which is really strange. And then you've got to like control where the crosshair is with your analog stick while you're in first person. This becomes very cumbersome to play, but it's still kind of fun in its own way. You got to pick a spot in a room to like plant yourself down and then start shooting at the enemies as they approach you in that room. It's okay. It's fun, actually. I played through it a few times just recently, just the other week. I played through once. I enjoyed it enough to play through it on the hardest mode. That is tough. The Morpheus is tough on that mode. Morpheus I struggled with a bit. They do a thing as well where like there's an enemy that can't see, so you get a silenced gun and you can just kind of pelt that boss with the silenced gun until he dies because he can't hear you or see you. And then I played through it again on hard mode to get an S rank and unlock infinite ammo and everything. Unlock the charged particle rifle with infinite ammo. And I had a great time actually playing through it. I think that's now my favourite light gun game, whereas before I probably would have said Survivor 2. I imagine it's kind of weird to play with a light gun because you got to really, like, there's when you're not shooting, you're exploring like a normal Resident Evil game. Like you're in third person, you're walking around, you're looking around for keys and stuff, which you don't really get as much in Survivor 2 and Survivor 1, but it's still probably D rank. But I enjoyed it quite a bit compared to the others. I had a good time. While we're on the subject of light gun games, let's move on to the Wii shooters. I play these a lot. Umbrella Chronicles, I really like actually. I think it's a fun Umbrella shooter. I think it's fun to play through Resident Evil 0, 1, 3. We'll talk about the last scenario in a second. And see, this was the first time I saw them reimagined, really. This was before the remakes. I played this pretty much when it came out on the Wii. Oh, I even have like the Wii Zapper. The Wii Zapper that it came with. You put your little Wii remote in there, put your nunchuck in the handle, hold it like that, and shoot the Wii remote. It's cool. I played it with that. And also, because when you need to knife, you separate it. So you've got knife swing, gunshot. Cool. Played with that. I think it's a good game. If you like things like House of the Dead and Umbrella shooters, there's no reason you won't like this game. You've got loads of weapons to unlock. There's like 3 submachine guns, there's 3 grenade launchers, 3 shotguns, 3 magnums, 3 rocket launchers, and you can upgrade them all separately with the points you earn through the levels. And once you upgrade them to max and complete the game on the hardest difficulty, you can start unlocking infinite ammo for all of them. You have infinite ammo for all of these guns. You pick one to take with you on each level. You play through the events of Resident Evil 0, 1, 2, 3, and another scenario, which I'll talk about in a second. And that's really fun. Now let's talk about the other scenarios. The story shown in the extra scenarios is good. You play through Fourth Survivor as Hunk, which you have seen in Resident Evil 2, but you also see Rebecca and Richard going through Resident Evil 1, which is really fun. You see Wesker's escape of Resident Evil 1's mansion, as he's getting his powers. You play as Wesker through Resident Evil 0 and what he experienced through there. You see Ada escaping from Raccoon City after she like falls from Resident Evil 2, after Leon drops her. He plays her escaping from Raccoon City. She fights one of the tyrant bosses from Outbreak File 2, one of the coolest designs, on her way out. Then, and this is insane to me, you then play the downfall of Umbrella, where you're playing as Chris and Jill taking down one of the last Umbrella labs in the world. And all of these things, Richard's story, Wesker's stories, Ada's story, the Umbrella lab takedown, these should be in mainline games. These are big, important parts of the story. I don't understand why those are locked to a on-rails shooter Wii game. And they're important. I don't even know how canon they are at this point. These are major things in Resident Evil, in the mainline games. Code Veronica ends. You start Resident Evil 4. Umbrella's gone. What happened to it? Oh, do you want to find out? Play the on-rails Wii shooter. I find that crazy. Not that these are bad games, but they should be in... They should at least be DLCs or something to a major game. We should have seen these on screen in a major game. I'm not going to dock the game, but I'm not going to take a point off the game for that. It's still a good game. I just think it's crazy that we don't see those in main games. I think actually where I've put Umbrella Chronicles right now is exactly where it needs to be. They're fun to play with a friend, invite them round, blast through a few levels with some of your favourite guns, and kill some zombies and have a good time. I'll talk about Dark Side Chronicles as well, but it's pretty similar. Dark Side Chronicles, it's the same situation. You play through Resident Evil 2, you play through Resident Evil Code Veronica, you see those stories, and then you get Operation Javier, which is such an important part of Leon and Krauser's history together, where that's really where they kind of bonded. Well, that's where Krauser became evil, but where Leon and Krauser bonded, and then Krauser realized he wanted to pursue ultimate power, where he gets fired from the military and starts his journey of evil into Resident Evil 4. This should be also part of a mainline game. This is important information. You start Resident Evil 4 and you see Krauser. If you're playing the original, he's like, been a long time, comrade. If you're playing the new one, he's like, long time no see, rookie. You see there's clearly a history there. You want to know that history? Go play the on-rails Wii game. The on-rails shooter Wii game. And I think that's still insane. Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles gameplay is a little bit different. Instead of having a load of weapons to cycle through, you take them like on a D-pad and you pick which full weapon you want to take through for a level. You can't find any more throughout the level. You can't unlock infinite ammo for any of them apart from the linear launcher, which you get as a reward. And I think that docks it a little bit. I liked in the other one you could upgrade. And there's way more weapons than Umbrella Chronicles as well. There's way more. I like there are more weapons than Umbrella Chronicles. I like that you can get infinite ammo for all of them. And I like that you can cycle through more of them. The other thing about Dark Side Chronicles is that the camera is shaky. It feels like body cam footage. It's less like an on-rails shooter where you're shooting everything on screen, and more like you're the camera strapped to Leon or whoever's chest, and you're being thrown around all the time, and it's hard to see when it's time to shoot something. It's hard to like focus something and kill it. And for those reasons, that's why I put it a little bit lower than Umbrella Chronicles, but it's still a good game. So that's the on-rails shooters done. Let's talk about Outbreak. Outbreak File 1 and File 2, very similar games. We're going to cover them both here. They are games that are a product of their time, and I mean that in, unfortunately, a bad way. I would love if these games came out just a few years later, and they were on the Xbox 360, PS3 era, not the PS2 era, because if these were online co-op games with the ease of just invite a friend, have voice chat, play through these games, and also if they just had a bit more knowledge of what co-op games should be and they didn't have some of these annoying features, these would be absolutely fantastic games, I think. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case. This was a case of these were PS2 online games, and if you didn't know the PS2 had online, I wouldn't blame you, but there was an online PS2, not many people used it. And if you're in the UK, Outbreak File 1 didn't have online. Even if you had online on your PS2, Outbreak File 1 did not. You had to play a single player, and that's insane to me. If you're in Europe, and I am in Europe, and that was my case. I didn't have online PS2 anyway. When I played through these games, I played through them both single player. I have played them online recently, and it is a much better experience. But I played through them single player originally, and I did not like them very much. There's loads of characters to choose from. There's a bunch. It starts off with like 8, and they've all got their own unique abilities, and you can unlock different costumes for them. But then you unlock like all of the NPCs in the game as kind of like costumes as for the other characters, but with slightly different stats. Same abilities, but like slightly different stats. And there's so much to go through. You like the store in that game, like the in-game store, just like not real money, just the money you earn from completing levels. You can buy concept art, the movies, like the cutscenes as viewers, models, costumes, characters. infinite ammo, difficulties, lone wolf mode where there's no NPCs. You can unlock like the bonus modes like showdown and stuff in the second one. They're a bit of fun. It's all there's cool enemy design. There's new enemies in these games. There's like new types of tyrants. There's Thanatos. These games are good. These Outbreak games are good. Outbreak 2 is slightly improved on a lot of the mechanics from 1. They give you they flesh out the character's abilities a bit more. They let you pick your NPCs that come with you in 2. That's a really nice feature. And also, I just generally kind of enjoy the levels a bit more. I really like going to the police station again in Outbreak File 2. The zoo's kind of cool. I do like the levels from 1 as well. I like the first one, Outbreak. I think that's really good. Just kind of going through the streets and stuff. I like the Hellfire when you're in the hotel. That one's really cool. Kind of feels like a bit like a Silent Hill game, exploring all the different rooms down like a corridor. I'm not a big fan of the hospital one in that one though. That one's actually my least favorite level across both of the games. So with that said, I'm going to rank Outbreaks together because they're very similar games, and they're let down by when they released. They would be better games if they were released a bit later. Outbreak File 2 slightly ahead of Outbreak 1 on rank C. Well, we're getting through them now. Let's do the mobile games, the ones that aren't survival unit. I am in a unique position where I have played Resident Evil Degeneration. I played it on my iPod Touch a long time ago. I have not played it since. I don't even know where you can play it anymore. This is a mobile video game version of the film Resident Evil Degeneration. For a mobile game, it's fine. It's like what you'd imagine from a third-person mobile game. I played a few of these. There was a Resident Evil 4 version on the mobile as well. We're about to do a second Resident Evil Mercenaries Versus, and there's a Dead Space one as well that I played very similarly as well. It's kind of janky. I don't know how to explain it. It's like there's an analog stick on the screen that you move up and down. You use another analog stick on the screen to look around, and you press a button above them to shoot. It's not good. It's not very it's not well made. I did actually play all the way through this though. I played a lot when I was younger, and whenever I was out, like not at home, I was playing games on my iPod Touch. So I did play a lot of iPod Touch games, iOS games, and Degeneration was one of them. I went all the way through it. I finished Degeneration. I remember very little about it at this point. But honestly, I don't really like playing any of these other games, and I did finish this, so I'm going to put this at the bottom of E. I think it's not even as good as Gaiden. Bottom of E. I feel like maybe I've been mean to Survivor, actually, now I'm thinking about it. Putting on the same rank as them's a little harsh. That's where we got it. It's above them, though. Resident Evil versus Mercenaries. I didn't play much of this. I did play it a bit, but I didn't play much of it. It's just, I think there's only like 3 maps. It's just like Mercenaries, but on a mobile. It's not great. We're putting this down here, just above Resistance. So that's the mobile games. Well, we're on Mercenaries. Let's do Mercenaries 3D. So this was on the 3DS. I did play this on the 3DS. This game is cool. It's cooler than I expected. This isn't where I'm putting it, by the way. That's just where I'm putting it down now while I talk about it. It's got a lot of maps from different games. It's got Resident Evil 4 maps, Resident Evil 5 maps. Don't think it has 6. I don't think it had any of 6 Mercenaries in it. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I only had 4 and 5 stuff. But it's got some cool stuff, and it's got some really cool unlockable costumes. Wesker gets like a Ouroboros virus costume. Hunk gets like a death costume, like a Grim Reaper costume. Rebecca gets like a cool nurse costume. Like some of the costume designs in that are fantastic. I'd love to see them in other games. You can unlock like super weapons. There's like a double barrel grenade launcher and like a Red 9 handgun, and they're great to play with. This game didn't have the right to be as good as it was, in my opinion. Actually, I enjoyed it more than I expected to when I played it on 3DS. When I played it on 3DS, I actually enjoyed it more than Revelations at the time. Since then, I've played Revelations on PC, and I do enjoy Revelations more, I will say. But I enjoyed this one. I thought I would. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put it above Resident Evil Survivor 2. Not as fun as Dead Aim, but I did enjoy that game, and I think it's good to have a little mix match. I would love to see a Mercenaries game come out now with Resident Evil 4 Remakes Mercenary style that is the mercenaries from all the games mixed together. Oh, I would love that so much. Operation Raccoon City. When this game came out, I was in denial about it a little bit. I'm going to be honest. I was defending it as much as I could just because I was so happy playing in Raccoon City again for the first time since, well, I guess since like Umbrella Chronicles, but really since like Outbreak or Resident Evil 2 and 3 Originals. And I love the idea of being Hunk's team because the Umbrella Security Service is always something I wish was explored more. So all of these factors, I was like, oh, I love all this. Let's be honest, this isn't a Resident Evil game at all. This is Gears of War. This is an oh no, sorry, that's an insult to Gears of War. I didn't mean that. Gears of War is far better, but this is a cover-based shooter. You're spending most of your time fighting government agents, or if you're playing as government agents, fighting random USS operatives. They've turned Raccoon City into a war zone that has zombies in between, and this is not what Resident Evil is about. They've turned them into fodder. You blast through these enemies like they're nothing. Lickers and hunters and tyrants, sure, they're a bit tougher, and they are probably the most fun part of the game. When you're fighting hunters and tyrants and nemesis and some of the other bosses, that's when this game's at its best, not when you're in cover, like popping up and firing at government agents. That's not what Resident Evil's about. That's not what this game should have been. And looking back on it, I'm very disappointed that's what it was. And also, this game didn't need to be non-canon. They could have, if they'd focused on the monsters more, not involved Leon and Jill and Claire, this could have happened. This could have been like, oh yeah, Hunk's team, Umbrella Security Service, they came in and they were messing shit up. They were trying to cover up the evidence. Some of the cutscenes are quite cool. It's a shame. You see the Paracelsus laser cannon get dropped in, the one that's used on Nemesis to kill him in the original Resident Evil 3 when you're playing as the government agents, and you use it to take out a bunch of super tyrants. That's so cool. You see the Nemesis beta parasite, because you see the Nemesis alpha parasite in the game, like in Remake, the one that's like on their head and it's like a big tail coming out. That's the Nemesis alpha parasite on a zombie. The Nemesis alpha parasite in a tyrant is what makes Nemesis. We see the beta parasite in Umbrella Operation Raccoon City. Sorry, it's like a big spider thing. It turns the zombie into big spider versions, and then it gets on a tyrant and turns him into what basically is a Nemesis beta. It's just another type of Nemesis. We got the Nemesis alpha in Resident Evil 3. We get the Nemesis beta in Operation Raccoon City at the end of the government agents storyline, and it's a big spider monster that kind of looks like Nosferatu from Code Veronica, but it's its own thing, and this is cool. It's just a shame that most of the game is shooting other humans and sitting in cover and firing back and fighting a cover-based shooter war zone, and I won't ever understand that decision they made. Also, this game was advertised as having the evil campaign and the good campaign. Like, you play as USS and you play as the government, and when it came out there was only the USS one, and then you were going to have to buy the government one to have the full experience. And as an apology, they gave you just the first level free. You had to buy the rest of those levels. And those levels, in my opinion, are far better. The characters aren't as good, but the levels are more interesting. They're way more fun to play. And so to get the better campaign, you have to buy, at the top of the main game, you have to buy the better campaign. And that sucks. And there was a big focus on the online modes, which all, in my opinion, were not very fun to play. Which means Operation Raccoon City, because the campaign is a bit of fun. I grabbed the wrong game. Whoopsie. Outbreak, I didn't mean to grab you. I meant to grab Operation Raccoon City. There we go. Operation Raccoon City. I'm going to put it there. Okay, we'll put it here. We'll cut it some slack. It's alright. Let's talk about some of the physical games, board games. I own all of these. Board games, deck building game. I've only got one deck building game here. I do have all of the expansions. Here's just one I have to hand. That's the Mercenaries one. Here's the main game. And this was the first deck building game I ever played, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love playing Resident Evil deck building game. You pick a character, and there's like characters from all across the franchise. So I'm talking about, I'm not rating each of the expansions differently. I'm talking about when you have all of the expansions and you're playing with all of them together. I know some of them you can play standalone, but let's just talk about all of it as a whole. You pick characters from like across the whole franchise. There's loads of them. You have a deck. It's a deck building game. You draw cards. You see what you've got. There'll be some money, some ammo. You can either explore the mansion, and it's basically just turn over a mansion card and see what enemy you're fighting. You hope it's something weak early on because you've probably only got pistols and handguns. There's a whole like shop to buy from. Some of them are like effect cards. They'll give you buffs. Some of them are just extra guns you can draw using different amounts of ammo, do different amounts of damage, and have different effects. Basically, that's how you play through. You play through, you're buying stuff sometimes, you're exploring the mansion some other turns, and then when you turn it over in the mansion, you're hoping it's a weak enemy, kill it. And then as you get stronger, you're trying to hunt harder enemies in the mansion, because once you beat the boss, which is either Tyrant T002 from Resident Evil 1, or it's mutated Nemesis from Resident Evil 3 original, when you beat them, the game ends. And I think whoever's got the most kills or points, I can't remember how you rack up points now, I haven't played it in a while, unfortunately, wins. And that's the game. And it's kind of a co-op game, but there's a little bit of competitive element to it. And it's actually really fun to play. I love playing Resident Evil deck building game. I think it's a really good experience. I'm going to put it Yeah, put it right there. I just realised, do I want Outbreak there? Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside Chronicles? I'm actually going to move Outbreak along. I think I prefer it to the Umbrella Shooters. Yeah, let's put that there. I think that's right. That feels better. Cool, now for the board games, and we'll cover these pretty quickly together. I backed these on Kickstarter, I got them when they first came out, and I love these games. These are some of the best co-op board games I've played. Resident Evil 2 is my favourite of the three. You select a character at the start, so in Resident Evil 2 you're between Resident Evil 2 characters, Ada, Leon, Claire, and a bunch of others. Resident Evil 3, Jill, Carlos, Mercenaries. Resident Evil 1, Jill, Chris, Barry. You know how it works. And you start off with your character's loadout, and you find guns. You have to build the map. You explore it. You're all playing, you're all on the same team. You're trying to get to the same objective. You're trying to get to the end of the scenario, probably beat a boss, and then get out. And you roll these dice to see if you hit any enemies. When you fire at them, you've got very limited ammo. You've got different ammo counters for each of your different guns, magnums, pistol, shotguns, grenade launchers, all these kinds of things. And there's a bunch of scenarios you play in a row. You've all got different specialties depending on who you are. Some might be better at healing, some might be better at using bow guns, some might be better at using whatever. So you are playing to each other's strengths. And most scenarios, you don't start together. So you gotta meet up and then start hanging out. And this game does a really good job of making the enemies scary. They're hard to kill. Even a single zombie, you can be firing at it for ages, it's coming at you, you knock it back, you don't kill it, you knock it, because there's a knockback mechanic. Sometimes you knock back a zombie with a bullet and don't kill it. It's coming at you, miss, knockback, miss, knockback, it bites you, knockback, kill. It can make enemies feel very scary, as they should in a Resident Evil game, and I really like these games. The downside to them is this setup can be very annoying and take a while, and you got to do it between each scenario. And this is where Resident Evil 3 board game in particular has a bit of a problem, because you have to move between the scenarios a lot, and it's a bit more annoying having to keep rebuilding some scenarios and stuff. Also, the failure state in this game, to have to reset a whole scenario, can feel like a lot of wasted time. That's how it is with games, I understand that, but it can suck sometimes if you die. But overall I really enjoy these board games. I'm probably going to put them all together probably in that order, actually. 2 is my favourite one, definitely. Yeah, 1 came out quite recently. I do have them. There's Res 1. Board game. The other 2 are just there. I'm not going to show you all of them, but I do have them. They are fun. So yeah, I'm probably going to just chuck them on the end of B. I do like playing these through. Do I like playing them more than Outbreak though? I do. I mean, I love the collaboration of people coming around and sitting around together and playing them as a board game. And Outbreak's Online, if Outbreak's Online was better, it would be so much higher. I can't stress that enough. Outbreak would be higher up. No, let's spread these out a bit. 2's my favourite, 3's a little bit lower, and 1 is my least favourite. There we go. That feels a bit better, I think. Maybe 3 up there. Yeah, there we go. That's how I'd rank. That feels harsh on 1. Sorry, I'm arguing myself. This is where I want them. I think they're good. This one is a little bit not as fun as the other 2. I think the first one was the best one. They released Resident Evil 2 first. Yeah, I like these. And now we're at the RE Engine games, which I have left last for a reason. And I love all of these games. These games are incredible games. We've got all the bad games out of the way now. And I think there's going to be one controversial opinion here, but we'll get to that. Let's start Resident Evil 7, which, for me, brought back the franchise from a dark place. Resident Evil 6 is down in B, Operation Raccoon City is down here, Revelations there and there. The games weren't terrible, but we hadn't had any of these bangers for a long, long time. And Resident Evil 7 brought it back. Resident Evil 7 was a horror game. When I first saw the trailer, I wasn't too sure. I thought it looked a bit like an Outlasty game with no combat. I wasn't too keen on that idea. When I played the demo that I'd heard was like PT, I loved the demo. I loved the Resident Evil 7 demo. I loved that it was updated frequently from when it came out. I love that it's not... it's set in an area that's in the main game, but it's not the same way you go through it in the main game. And then the main game came out and I loved it. Resident Evil 7 follows a very similar structure to Resident Evil 1. You start in the mansion, and then you go out the back, and you go into another more run-down house. In Resident Evil 1 is the guardhouse. In Resident Evil 7 it's the old house. Then you come back to the mansion for a bit. In Resident Evil 1 it's when the hunters start showing up. In this one, it's now got more molded, and there's more mold enemies around, because obviously Jack's gone. And then once you're done with that, in Resident Evil 1 you go into the caves. This is where it starts to deviate a little bit, because in 7, that's when you now go into Lucas's section, which is still full of traps, and it's like a barn house. And then there's the boat section, which is completely No, there's nothing to do with that in Resident Evil 1. Then after the boat, then you do go into the caves, which then leads into a very small lab. And if you include Not Hero, Chris's DLC, then that's quite a big lab. It's a lot bigger in that section. And that is what Resident Evil 1 does as well. It goes caves and then a lab. The boat is the worst bit of the game. I've talked about that a number of times. I don't like the boat section of Resident Evil 7. And Chris's section should have really been the end of the game. I'm kind of upset that Not Hero... I guess it was free, I can't complain. Like, now you can play it properly, but Not Hero is just kind of the end of the game. It has the real last boss. The last boss in the main game, not that good. Last boss in the Not Hero, much better. That last bit should have been there, and it also just wraps up the story of the last Baker fan member that you don't kill in the main game, Lucas. Resident Evil 7's unlockables, they're okay. So when you finish the game, the first thing you unlock is just a stronger pistol. It's the Alba 01R, which it's a replica of the gun you use to kill Evelyn at the end of the game. So it's not quite as strong as that version, it only holds 3 bullets, but it's like a miniature Magnum that only uses handgun ammo. So it's a lot easier to find ammo for it, and it's a lot more common for handguns. And this makes basically all of your other playthroughs a breeze. Now what you're doing, whether you're going for like a speed run to unlock I think it's the saw, or if it's a collectible run to unlock the shoes, I think that's the right way around. It makes them so much easier. That's the first unlock you need to do all the other challenges, and you get it first, and I love that. I love that's something you get first. Maybe it's a little too strong to get first. Maybe it should have been like at the very minimum finish it on normal. Maybe it should have been get all the collectibles. Maybe it should have been a time thing, but whatever, you get it just on a normal completion, easy or hard, easy or normal, I think, assisted or standard. And then you get an unlimited saw. So that's your first unlimited ammo weapon that's really strong. You hold it out in front of you. It's a circular saw. You can just like cut through stuff, but it's not ranged. So it's a limited ammo, but it's not ranged. I think that's from the speedrun. You can also get X-ray glasses, which let you see the items through walls. And this is good because this game doesn't have the same map system the Resident Evil 2 Remake and 3 Remake have, which it really could do with, actually, to be honest. But it lets you see all the items, like little things appear above the items that you can see through walls, which is a effect you get from the psychostimulant, which is an item that's usable in game. But if you just have the X-ray glasses in your inventory, you have it all the time. And then last of all, complete the game on Madhouse difficulty. You get an infinite ammo item. A way I really like they did it in this game, and I think Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 3 Remake could have done with this. It's an item that while it's in your inventory, everything has infinite ammo, so you can put it away and take it out as you wish whenever you want, which is a good way of doing it. You've completed the game on the hardest difficulty for that one. And then the DLCs are incredible. I love Nightmare. That's such a fun thing to do, to replay over and over again. It's like what Mercenary should be in some cases, where you start off with just a pistol, you don't make it to the end, you get some points, so the next time you can get a shotgun and a submachine gun, and every time you play it, you're like more stuff for your next playthrough, and that's so much fun. I love playing Nightmare. Bedroom is one of the best puzzles in the franchise, and the second best puzzle? Possibly the birthday cake puzzle in Resident Evil 7, where you have to watch the tape as Clancy first, and he sees it and dies, and you get to it as Ethan. First of all, going through it as Clancy is a really fun and interesting puzzle. It's fun to figure out, and then the fact that what you need to do when you get to it as Ethan is go, oh wait, I remember Clancy died when he did this puzzle. I don't want to do it the same way as Clancy did. I want to just solve it without spilling the oil to create the explosion. So you remember the code that Clancy did. Thankfully, Lucas hasn't changed it. Thankfully, you can get through without dying like Clancy did. I thought that was such a good little puzzle to solve. And then Bedroom Puzzle DLC is incredible. That whole DLC is a puzzle where you've got to put everything back the way it was before Marguerite comes in to see you, otherwise she attacks you. While you're solving it, a loud noise will happen. Marguerite's coming to get you, and you need to put everything back to how it was, and if she notices a difference in the room, she's going to do some damage. You get 3 chances, and then you're dead. The DLCs were so good. 21. A spin on blackjack that makes it much more tactical, because there's only one of each card in there. So you know when someone's got a 1, that means there are no other 1, so there's not a 1 in the deck. You can count cards sort of like much more effectively, and you get wild cards that change things up. You can switch cards to the other player. You can increase their bet. You can all kinds of things, all in the backdrop of a saw trap. It's like your life's in danger. You're betting with your life. You're not betting with money. You're betting with your life. That's incredible. Daughters is probably the weakest of the DLC. And then Joe Baker in End of Zoe, where you're just doing punch combos and you're getting robot fists, and it's just a bit of a silly mode where you fight Jack again, and you tell him, when he told you welcome to the family from the start, you finish it by saying farewell from the family, brother, and you punch him in the face and he dies. Resident Evil 7 is so good. The main game's also incredible. I love the bringing it back to horror. Even survival horror, like the ammo management in this game is much better than it had been in previous entries up until this point. The level design's so good, going around that mansion, the old house afterwards, and then going through Lucas's saw traps. Different types of horror Jack being like a sort of like a slasher type villain, then getting to Margaret, like he's chasing around with like big weapons and axes and things, and a chainsaw fight inspired by Evil Dead. Jack even says groovy when he picks up the chainsaw. He's like a big chainsaw scissors, and then Ethan grabs his own chainsaw. You have a chainsaw duel with Jack. That's such a cool idea for a boss fight. And then you get to Marguerite, who's like body horror and like insects and bugs. It's all kind of creepy, disgusting sort of stuff. And then you fight her, and she is one of the most grotesque villains you've ever seen when she mutates. She turns into a weird spider creature with a hive on her of bees. And then Lucas is like Saw. He's like setting up traps. He's capturing you, he's torturing people. Even at the end, Evelyn, even though I don't like the boat section because you have to do it twice as Mia without your weapons, Evelyn's like the sort of ghostly little girl horror, kind of creepy, kind of appearing out of nowhere, saying creepy things to you. The game tackles each type of horror and does most of them really well. The last one's kind of a bit weaker than the other three, but the first three are so good. There are two other modes that come with the Lost of Footage DLCs. They are Ethan Must Die and Jack's 55th birthday. Now, these DLCs are not canon, unlike all of the other ones. I think that's an important thing to note. All of the banned footage and Not a Hero and End of Zoe are all canon. They're all story relevant DLCs, but these two are not. Jack's 55th birthday, it's a weird one. It's got multiple levels, kind of like Mercenaries does. I guess that's the closest thing it has to it, other than Nightmare. And you got to run around collecting food and bringing it back to Jack, who's like sat at a table in his birthday gear, not his birthday suit, his birthday gear, like a hat. And you're feeding him food, and different foods like fill his hunger meter up different amounts. You got to fill it all the way up, and you got to do it as quick as you can to get the highest rank, which unlocks some strange unlockables. Actually, there's like a golden gun that fires like a laser. I think is strange. There's a lot of weird unlockables in that, which is my least favorite of all of the bonus modes in the Resident Evil 7 DLCs. Not a huge fan of Jack's 55th birthday. Does have a banger of a tune playing the whole time though. But Ethan Must Die is really good. Ethan Must Die is almost like a rogue-like mode of playing the Resident Evil 7's main areas. You start by Zoe's caravan, but you need to get to the greenhouse where you fight Marguerite, which is right by that area, except the door's locked. So you got to go all the way through the mansion. You got to take a new route around the whole mansion to get the key, to get through the gate, to get and fight Marguerite, and that's the end. A successful run of this takes somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes. I think my first time took about 40 and my best time has taken about 20 minutes. But that's a successful run. You don't often get a successful run. This is incredibly hard. The items throughout are randomized. Sometimes you're going to get a nice Alberto 1 hour early on. Sometimes you're not going to see a gun till you're halfway through it and you're going to be really stuck. And sometimes the boxes are booby-trapped and they'll explode and you can hear ticking to like determine whether they're going to explode or not. It's actually a lot of fun trying to play Ethan Must Die. It's incredibly hard though. It took me so many attempts to get the first successful run. Once you get your first successful run, you kind of know it. It's not too bad. You do have to learn. You have to learn every enemy spawn. You have to know where every bomb is. You have to know this mode to be able to complete. You have to learn everything. And when you finally learn an area and get through it, you're going to die in the next area probably and start the whole thing again. It's roguelike. You've got one life. You die, you start the whole thing again and everything's re-randomized. When you die, you do leave a little statue where you died, and one of the items you had in your last run can be picked up from that statue. You don't know which one though. Hopefully it's a nice gun. And yeah, Ethan Must Die. I think it's great. I think it's a lot of fun. It does take a lot of learning before you get the hang of it. I love Resident Evil 7. I like it even more than the original Resident Evil 4. I don't think I like it quite as much as the original games, but I put it on the same rank as Resident Evil 1, the original Resident Evil 1. I thoroughly enjoyed Resident Evil 7. Let's do Resident Evil 8, and then we'll handle the remakes. Also a very good game. Following Ethan again, giving him a bit more of a personality, still not much. Kind of making a Resident Evil 4 style game. This one's very action heavy. There's the Lycans that are very almost Ganado and Magini like from the other Resident Evils. They can dodge bullets, they've got a bit more intelligence. You've got that sort of village fight opening sequence where you fight a bunch of them and then a big one comes in, which is very similar to the openings of Resident Evil 4 and 5 that do the same thing with a chainsaw guy and a big axe guy. Sections of the game are really good. You get the castle first with Lady Dimitrescu and her daughters, and that's really fun. You've got her stalking you. You fight the three bosses, fight the three sisters where you fight her, like building up to it. The environments are really cool. There's a whole cellar full of blood wine. That's great. You do that fight, you go back into the village, explore the village a bit more. You're up in new areas you hadn't seen before, and then you go to House Beneviento, And that one's the scariest part of the game. That's one of the scariest bits of any of the Resident Evil games, except maybe 7. You lose your weapons. You're solving a puzzle, which is also a really good puzzle. One of the best puzzles out there. Probably not as good as the ones in 7, but still a really good puzzle where you're like using a mannequin of your wife to get keys and stuff. Once you've solved, you start getting chased by a big, scary baby creature that is quite terrifying. That is very scary, and you finally escape it to get into a dollhouse where lots of creepy dolls have come alive and you're having to find them and stab them. And once again, it's exploring different kinds of horror. This time it's going about it a little bit of a different way. This time it's like vampires and werewolves, and then it's like ghostly dolls and creepy things, and then it's the next one's a big sea monster. So then you go to the swamp and it's a giant fish. Moreau's a big scary fish, and you're running over like platforms and he's eating them, chasing you. As a bit of a panic situation to it, and then you fight him, and he's one of the tankiest bosses in that game. He's got so much health. And then you go to the stronghold, and that's not as good. That's just kind of overwhelming. That's where the game gets really actiony. It dials back again after that, and that bit's a little too hectic, I think, for that game. And then you go to the factory, and I love the factory. There's a lot of exploration there. It's kind of like the castle again, but this time it's all robotic. And I love the fact we've got cybernetic enemies. You don't see that much in Resident Evil games. I love cybernetic enemies in Resident Evil games. Why wouldn't Umbrella or whatever company or whoever's making them use the virus and then enhance them with robotics as well, make them even stronger? It's got a big fight in like a tank as well, where you've got like a chainsaw and a rocket launcher. Once you've beaten Heisenberg and you get out of the factory, then you actually switch to play as Chris for a bit. And this is interesting because Chris plays kind of like Ethan, whereas he played fairly differently in Resident Evil 7 in Not a Hero. In Not a Hero, he could aim down sights, he could counter, he could punch. He did all these cool things. And in 8, he seems to have lost these abilities. He just kind of plays like Ethan again. When you first play this, on your first run, you kind of feel like a powerhouse playing as Chris. He's got a really powerful assault rifle. He's got one of the strongest pistols in the game. And once you've done a few runs of the game and you've unlocked some cool stuff on New Game Plus for Ethan, Chris suddenly feels like the weaker character because you don't get any of your stuff that you've unlocked or any of the weapons you've carried over from previous playthroughs as Ethan. So... And future playthroughs is actually the tougher bit of the game. But it is quite fun to play through as Chris for a bit and then pick up at the end with the last boss, which is alright. Resident Evil 8 has my favourite version of unlockables in Resident Evil games. It's not the best iteration of it, but it's my favourite. It has a points shop, which means it's got a list of challenges with points assigned to them, and then a shop with rewards with points assigned to them. So you pick which challenges you want to do and get some points to unlock some things, usually infinite ammo weapons, and then you choose where you want to spend your points, on what weapons you want to unlock, what infinite ammo weapons you want to get, and the cheaper ones will be like the handguns, and the more expensive ones will be like magnums. You also have to have fully upgraded the weapon in the campaign to be able to buy their infinite ammo version. There are also some other things to unlock that are just weapons, like a rocket pistol, which is terrible, even though it's for completing the hardest difficulty. A hand cannon, which is incredible, even though it's easier to unlock than the rocket launcher, because it's just basically a magnum that uses sniper ammo, which is more common than magnum ammo. And there's a lightsaber, which you unlock through Mercenaries, which is pretty cool. And Mercenaries is also another thing you unlock when you complete the game, which is very different to its previous iterations. And when the game first launched, it wasn't great. When the game first launched, you could only play as Ethan. There's only a few maps. It's more roguelike than the other iterations of Mercenaries. It's not like you load into a map and you gotta survive against hordes of enemies, getting timers and combos. It's nothing like that at all. It's you gotta get from A to B, killing every enemy along the way, and finding like these power-up orbs, and you pick like a boon from each of them. And sometimes they'll be like increases melee damage, increases damage to handguns, increases reload speed with the handguns, increases shotgun accuracy, things like that. And you kind of want to make a build. You kind of want to focus on something from the start. So you want to be like, I'm going to go shotguns this run. So you get a shotgun, and all your boons, you're like, okay, I'm going to take shotgun damage, shotgun accuracy, shotgun spread, blah, blah, blah. Or you want to go, I'm going to go melee attack. So I want to grab a knife at the start, and I want to take melee damage. I get heals on doing melee hits. I want to take movement speed, like melee attack speed, all of these things. Like, you kind of go for a build, and it's kind of all based around what you're doing there, less around the character, which is why there's only one character you have to play as Ethan. But then, they released the DLCs, and there's a few things to talk about in the DLCs. I'll start with Mercenaries, because that's what we're talking about now. In Mercenaries, they added 3 new characters. You get Chris straight away, and then they added an unlockable Heisenberg and Lady D. And for me, this made Resident Evil 8 Mercenaries way more enjoyable. Far better than it was when it launched, because these characters had much more interesting mechanics. They had like, I think it's called a mayhem meter, something like that. That means they can use different moves. Like Lady D can use her claws and she can throw vanity, things like that. Heisenberg can use his big hammer and like do a big ground pound attack. Chris is still kind of standard, but he's got, I think he just goes like a super mode where he can like shoot fast and do more damage. I can't remember exactly, but it's made the game way more fun. You got all these different characters, and then their boons are based around their different attacks because they don't have guns like Ethan does. So you got all these new host of boons to pick from when you're going through it that are way more interesting, that really lead into like the characters' different move sets. There's other moves I haven't talked about. I can't remember all of them. It's been a while since I played it, but it made it way more fun. The DLC is called the Winter's Expansion as well, and added the mercenaries characters. It also added a third-person mode, which for me is actually the best way to play the game. It's kind of janky. It's not implemented the best way possible, but I still love playing Resident Evil games in third person. It's my preferred way to play them. So I was really happy when they added this, and ever since that's come out, I think I've always played in third person. I think most people should play their first playthrough in first person just because there are certain cutscenes that kind of is weird to be taking in and out of first and third constantly. But after that, subsequent playthroughs, I think third is much better, but it's down to preference. And this is the thing, and this is what's good about 9 as well. People have the choice now. Some people prefer third, like me. Some people prefer first, and there's no problem with that. They should give these options. These games work well in both. So give us the option. I prefer to play third whenever I can. That's how we're doing Resident Evil 9. People can play first if they like that as well. But the last thing this DLC added, which was the main attraction of the DLC really, but in my opinion, it's probably the worst part of it, Shadows of Rose. This was actually quite a disappointment. So when I'm ranking Resident Evil 8, I'm not really taking Shadow of Rose into consideration because it would bring it down. So I'm not really thinking about it, but I will briefly talk about it. It explores Rose's story after Ethan's death, when she's much older. I can't remember how old she is. She's about 16, I think. She looks like a teenager. I'm not exactly sure how old she is, but she goes into like the Mega Mycete, which if you recall from the game, the Mega Mycete like stores the memories of everyone who's ever been connected to it. Mega Mycete being like the mold hive mind, and Rose like goes into it, and she meets up with her dad, and she gets some clarity, some things about her dad, which is some nice moments. But the gameplay here just isn't good. It's split into two halves. Well, I guess it's more split into thirds. The first third is Castle Dimitrescu, and that's okay. You start with a handgun, you're fighting these like weird new white mold ooze monsters, and they're okay, but they're the only enemy really, apart from one other one that shows up a bit later. And you just find these guys over and over again. Eventually you get a shotgun, and that's all you get weapons wise. And then you fight a boss who's got a weak spot, and there's kind of an interesting boss fight. That bit's okay. It's fine. The boss fight's probably the highlight there. The boss fight's not too bad. And then you go into House Beneviento, and it becomes a horror game. And actually they do a really good horror sequence here. They do a really good horror sequence where the Mia mannequin that Ethan was using for a puzzle starts chasing you around, but it acts like it can't move while you're looking at it, so you're keeping an eye on it. And it's this really stress-inducing, tension-building sequence where there's this doll that you got to keep an eye on it while you're trying to solve your puzzles and escape, but you got to keep going back and watching it, because every time you look away you hear dub, dub, dub as it gets closer to you. It's very creepy, it's very dark, very scary. And eventually as you're going through it, a second one appears, and you got to watch two of them, and then later on the third one appears. You kind of expect it after the second one appears, like, oh okay, they're going to introduce more of them. That's actually a really scary part of the game. That's really good. The next bit is when it gets a little worse. Still in the House Beneviento, you escape the mannequins, and then there's giant, well actually you go really small, so you're in like a really small, you feel like you're really small in a huge house, and the dolls are big and they're chasing you, and it's kind of like a stealth section where you got to hide behind them while they're like patrolling and stuff, and that bit's boring as hell. There's a lot of sitting and waiting for them to get the right patrol route and then just quickly sneaking behind them. It's not very good. Once you get past the dolls, Evelyn shows up, because Evelyn was connected to the Mega Mycete at one point, and you do a weird kind of slightly more interesting version of the bit at the end of 7 where she's like using her force to blow you back, and you got to like get to her during this way. You got to like take cover behind things and slowly get towards her, and eventually Ethan, that's when he reveals himself to be Ethan. Your dad helps you defeat her fully, and that's interesting. It kind of gives a little bit more closure on Evelyn, not that we really needed it. Then the last third is in the village when it's all overgrown with mold, and you kind of fight your way through, and it's fine. You find the white mold guys again from this first section. At the end you find Ethan, and he's kind of he's there, he's in his full form, and he helps you fight your way out, and that's kind of nice, fighting alongside Ethan. And then you get to the last boss, and that's it's probably the highlight of the DLC. It's okay. I'm saying highlight, like the bad bits are, it's kind of boring, and then you get these bits that aren't so bad. This last bit, it's kind of a fun boss fight. You get to use mold powers, and you get to like do big mold attacks at Miranda. It's quite an interesting boss fight, and you use these powers. But then you finish this DLC, and you get nothing. It gives you no unlockable in the main game. It gives you nothing to replay this DLC with. Like, you just got mold powers right at the end, and you got to use them for the last fight. Wouldn't it be cool to give us some kind of mold power for the next playthrough, or give us some weapons to unlock? Maybe a high, like a top difficulty that's hard to beat. There's just no replayability to this DLC whatsoever. There's no reason to go and play Shadow Rose again. And even if there was, there's a couple of boring bits in it. Like the patrolling dolls bit's quite boring. The bit where you're going through the opening where you're just fighting those white mold enemies, there's not much else. You get to use, you do get to use the powers a little bit throughout. You get to do this like little freeze thing. You like, they go crackly and then they like freeze, and that's what you can do. But you get some much cooler powers at the end. I think the DLC could have been a lot better than it was. I think they missed the mark. I think they focused on the wrong thing. I don't even know if Rose going to the Mega Mice seat was the thing to explore for a DLC for that game. That might not have been the best choice, but that's what we got. And the Mercenaries was far improved, and the third-person mode is much appreciated, so I can forgive Shadows of Rose not being the greatest. It's a good game. I am going to put this just under, I actually thinking about it now, I think I do prefer 7 to Resident Evil 8. I like how much of a horror game 7 is. I like that it revived the franchise. I love so many things about 7. I love some things about 8 as well, but it didn't do anything too super crazy for me. And now we move on to the remakes. Resident Evil 2 Remake is a phenomenal game. It fell a bit short on a couple of things, mostly in the scenarios. The scenarios are not different enough compared to the original Resident Evil 2. But other than that, this game did such a good job of bringing Leon and Claire to the modern gaming audience and making survival horror accessible for so many more people. For so long, it really felt like the only good survival horror games were the ones that were fixed camera angles and tank controls, and I guess 7 kind of brought it back, but 2 really brought it back, because all the other ones after that were a bit too action focused, and 2 is scary. Tyrant is one of the best visual enemies we ever get in this. Tyrant is great. He's a little easy to manipulate, but that's fine. And this game does so many things right that it makes me forgive the reason, like the fact that the scenarios aren't different enough, and the fact that they kind of extended the sewers a little bit too long. The sewers became a major part of the game, which they weren't so much in the original. And I am sad that we're missing the marshalling yard. I'm a bit sad we are missing the marshalling yard. I did like the marshalling yard, but it's only a couple of rooms. I'm not that mad about it. I do think the lab design wasn't as good in the remake. I didn't feel like there was lots of lab I didn't see in the remake. I think there probably was, but there were less, like, there's only 1 or 2. There were less like areas where I'm like, oh, there could be more lab behind that door, there could be more lab that way. When you go to William's section, the level 3 area, there's nowhere in there that they're like, oh, there could be more lab in this direction, there could be more lab over here. That's just very tight, it's very small. It didn't feel like it could be as big. Even though there's big empty space in front of you that you could see, it felt like it was empty space. It didn't feel like there was much extra lab. That said, that's a minor detail for a game that really brought the third-person survival horror generation to life, and I think it's so good. The unlockables in Resident Evil 2 Remake, I'm not a big fan of how they're done, but they are fun once you've got them. So the first thing you can get is an unlimited knife, because in this game all knives break, and this was a good choice to be able to unlock this unlimited knife, and it'd make it the easiest thing to unlock. It's not super overpowered, but it does really help a lot. I mean, the knife is super overpowered, but that's because of a glitch with the frame rate. Not talking about that, but having an unlimited knife is really useful. With the unlimited knife, you've got to get all of the little bobbleheads, and you can do it any difficult, you can do it easy. If you want, you can go through, just find all the little bobbleheads, get up a guide, have a look through, and find all the bobbleheads on the map. Easy. Not bobbleheads, little raccoons. And then once you're with the limited knife, you might want to use that to do the next challenge, which is to complete normal difficulty in under, I think it's 2.5 hours, which isn't too bad, especially when you've got an infinite knife, and this gives you an unlimited pistol. And this is great, because then when you do your next challenge, now you don't need to worry about getting all the pistol ammo and collecting it. You can just fire away at every enemy with the pistol. It's only really going to help you with zombies, because some of the harder enemies, pistols aren't great against, especially if you're doing a speed run, because it's not going to kill them quickly. So then you go up to the next difficulty. The next challenge is doing hardcore in under 2.5 hours. So you use your pistol, you use your new infinite ammo pistol, you complete hardcore under 2.5 hours, and you unlock infinite submachine gun. Now, this is where it sucks. The next thing you can get is either the infinite ammo Gatling gun or the infinite ammo rocket launcher, and these are really cool weapons. To get them, you have to complete the game on the hardest difficulty under 2.5 hours with only 3 manual saves, maybe 5. I think it's 3 manual saves, and there are no auto saves on hardcore, and without using any of your other unlockables. And this is where I really hate this style of unlockable, because now I just slowly incremented my way up. Knife, pistol, submachine gun, now to go for the best stuff. And now I can't use any of those things. Now I've got to start from scratch. Obviously I've done it, and for Resident Evil 2 Remake, it's not the hardest game, but I just think that really sucks. I wish this challenge had been harder, but let you use those previous unlockables. I don't know how they could have done it, reduce the amount of time you need to do. They could have just put a harder difficulty in the game, to be honest. Resident Evil 2 Remake could do with a harder difficulty. Its hardest difficulty isn't that bad. But let us use what we've unlocked. Don't take away our unlockables. Make it so that those unlockables don't make it trivial. So give us something so hard that those unlockables don't make the challenge easy. Make a challenge so hard that the unlockables are still hard to get, even while using the previous unlockables. That's what I think, and it's a shame that it's done like that. Once you complete Resident Evil 2 Remake, you unlock Hunk to play, Fourth Survivor. That's what it's called. Once you complete both scenarios, you unlock Fourth Survivor, and that's really good. It's far improved over the original. It's the same idea. You're playing as Hunk. He's trying to escape Raccoon City. He's injured from his fight with William, and you got to get from the sewers out of the police station. It follows the same principle. You've got the same weapons. Actually, slightly different. You've now got a pistol, magnum, shotgun like the original, but you've also got a submachine gun. You don't find any items along the way, and it's really good. And it's not as hard as it was. It's definitely much more doable. You do still kind of need to learn it to get your way out. And once you've done it, you can do it in 10 to 20 minutes, I think. Probably about the times I normally do that. It's quite short, but it's very fun. And you're talking to Nighthawk a few times throughout it, being like, Nighthawk, where's my extraction? And then near the end, he's like, I just wanted to meet the Grim Reaper. That's why I came back. I wanted to meet you. It's good. It's really good. And once you've done it, you unlock Tofu mode again. And Tofu mode is much, much better than the original. So now, instead of it was just a knife-only mode before. Now Tofu has an inventory full of knives. So he can grab an enemy, knife off, like you use it like a defense item, like you do in the main game. And so you've got an inventory of knives to get through, knocking enemies off you with the knives. And then once you beat it, you unlock more Tofus, and they have different loadouts. Some have got grenades, some have got flamethrowers, Gatling guns, pistols, and it's lots of fun to play through this mode with all 5 different types of Tofu. And some of them are better than others. Some of them are really fun to play, some of them are really difficult. It's a good time. Then later on they added the Ghost Survivors mode, where they're like what-if scenarios, where first when you play as the mayor's daughter, the one that Chief Irons killed. So it's if she escaped Chief Irons, basically. She like threw a bottle at him and then she escaped, and you're playing her escape to Raccoon City, and she's getting back to her boyfriend Ben in the underground prison. I don't know why he's her boyfriend. That's not mentioned in the main game at all. And that's what you got to do. You got to get from the orphanage where we originally found her body in the main game, all the way to the police station cells and meet Ben. And along the way, you come across a new enemy. You come across Paleheads, and they're really tough, regenerative zombies. They're quite cool. And you come across these like vending. This is in all the Ghost Survivors modes. You come across these vending machines along the way, and each one of them you pick a reward. So sometimes it'll be like, do you want a shotgun? Do you want 60 pistol bullets, or do you want like a first aid spray? And you're like, oh, what do I need right now? A shotgun would be great, but I'm really low on health. I've got one first aid spray, and you can only pick one. And that's such a really cool idea. That's the first one, playing as the mayor's daughter. Second one, plays Kendo, trying to get from his shop down to the sewers and back out again, where someone's going to pick up with a helicopter. And in that one, they introduce a new enemy, which is they're poison zombies. They're all purple and they've got glowing eyes, and when you kill them, they release a gas cloud, and if they bite you, they poison you as well. So that's really cool, because it's an enemy that can poison you. That's not just the sewer guys. Yeah, that one's quite good as well. Same sort of principle. You find those things along the way that you should pick items, and you'll get to the end. The next one is my favourite one, where you play as Ghost, who is someone from Hunk's team who has survived, and he's got the G sample and he's trying to get out with the G sample. And I love this one. You're playing through as one of Hunk's operatives. You're using magnum, shotguns, blah blah blah. This one introduces a new enemy. They're armored zombies. They've got like riot gear on, and they'll either have legs, body, arms, or head protected by the riot gear, and those bits are completely bulletproof, so you can't shoot those bits. You have to shoot other bits of them, and they could have multiple bits of armor on. Right at the end, you come across a couple of zombies that have full armor on, and they're just, they can't hurt them. You just got to avoid those ones. Once again, that bit's really cool. I like that. And then once you've done all 3 of them, you unlock a secret 4th one, where you're playing as the sheriff at the start, who's like, stay back sir, I got this, when Leon or Claire go into the convenience store at the gas station where the game starts in the first scenario. You're playing as him, and he's just surviving a horde of zombies in the convenience store. That's good fun. Now, there is an unlockable here. If you complete it using less than 60 pistol bullets, you unlock infinite ammo. You unlock cat ears as a hat that give the character unlimited ammo for these modes. So you can play through these modes with unlimited ammo, which is fun. But that is actually incredibly hard. That's actually the hardest challenge in this game, in my opinion, doing that with only using 60 pistol bullets. It's so tough. It took me a while to get that. I think that's harder than getting an S+ rank on the main campaign. I think that's harder than doing any of the Tofu modes. It's a tough one. It's not even the reward isn't even included in the unlockable rewards DLC either, so you can't buy your way out of that one. Yeah, it's tough, but the reward's fun. And I love Resident Evil 2 Remake. I think it does actually just beat Resident Evil 2 Original as a game. Oh, actually, I don't think that. I think they're equal for different reasons. I think Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 2 are two fantastic games, and I personally love them, but my favorite is Resident Evil 3. Which is where we come to a controversial opinion of mine, Resident Evil 3 Remake. Because I'm such a big fan of the original Resident Evil 3, you might think I didn't like Resident Evil 3 Remake because of how much it butchered the original Resident Evil 3, and it is true. It is too short, it's too linear. We don't see as much of Raccoon City as we should. Jill should have been the one to go to the police station. Nemesis should be a pursuer for longer. I think when Nemesis isn't this as a pursuer, he is fantastic. I think the way they have him running, using his tentacles like Spider-Man to get around, stopping you, having combos to punch you with. I think he's absolutely what he should be. He is Tyrant dialed up to 100. He's so much harder to fight, but when you do, you can get away from him. And I love his new design. I don't like his design in Umbrella Chronicles and Operation Raccoon City. I love his design in the original, and I really like his design in Remake. I don't think it's quite as good as the original, but it's the next best thing. I do really like his design. And also, we didn't see the clock tower, but there are some things about Resident Evil 3 Remake that I absolutely love. And that is the bit of Raccoon City that we do explore, I think is incredible. I want to see more of that. I want to see that so much. The bit where you're climbing up the fire tower, Nemesis has a flamethrower. Giving Nemesis a flamethrower was a stroke of genius, because you don't want to give him like a minigun, because that makes him too ranged. Flamethrower is nice, close range, still shows him the intelligence of using weapons, and makes him scary. And that chase up the construction site is one of the best set pieces in any Resident Evil game for me. I love that chase scene where he's chasing you up there, setting it on fire. The boss fight at the top could have been better if he was a bit stronger. I hate how weak he is in some of these sections. One grenade takes him out too often. They should have made him more resistant. They should have made that boss fight longer, especially on the highest difficulty. It does suck the sewers are back. We didn't need the sewers to be extended again, but I do like their take on the hunters. The hunter gammas, they're quite good. Carlos in the RPD, do wish it was Jill. I do wish it was Jill. Nemesis's design when he's like a weird four-legged dog thing, I like that. I wish it happened later. I wish the fight at the clock tower, he was like his old phase 2, where he didn't have it. It was still humanoid, had his tentacles, and then he turned to the dog in later. I wish it was an extra step. I wish it went normal Nemesis, the old phase 2 Nemesis, then the dog Nemesis, and then the final boss Nemesis. I wish that the old phase 2 wasn't skipped, because I do think it's cool, but I didn't like they replaced the original phase 2. And the new hospital as Carlos is so good. The hospital is so much better. It is a shame it seems to replace the clock tower, because the clock tower was good, but it wasn't that long in the original. It wasn't a huge section. An important thing happened there. The helicopter got shot down, and that probably should have happened again. But overall, I do wish those things were there. But I love what they do with the hospital. I love where they take, apart from the end of the hospital where you do that shooting section as Carlos. That shouldn't happen. You don't need that. And then we've got the lab. Yeah. Kind of weird. Nest 2 should have just been the dead factory again, but I still I love the last fight. I love the Nemesis in this at the end goes from being the easiest enemy last boss we've had in a Resident Evil game, and if you play on the hardest difficulty, he's one of the hardest bosses we've ever had in a Resident Evil game. He can stun lock you forever. He can one-shot you. He can do all kinds of things. He is so difficult, and he is lots of fun. And using the big laser gun is lots of fun. I wish it wasn't called the Finger. I wish it's called the Paracelsus Sword like it used to be. This game doesn't have replayability in the same way the Resident Evil 3 original did. It doesn't have the choices. It doesn't have the randomness. It doesn't have the branching paths. There's a lot of things that made Resident Evil 3 original so replayable that this game doesn't have, which is a big shame. However, it actually has what Resident Evil 3 the original didn't have in the way of replayability, in terms of it has the best unlockable system of any Resident Evil game, in my opinion. This is the best unlockable system. It also has 5 difficulties, which is good. So a lot of Resident Evils only have 3 or 4, but this one has 5, and the last 2 do change enemy and item placement, so that's quite good. So that adds a bit of replayability there, that we're kind of replacing the randomness, but not really replacing it, making up for it slightly. But the unlockable system is far better than the original. The original's only unlocks through the bonus game, whereas this does it through the actual game, and it does it the best way possible. It's my favourite mode, which I've talked about before, which is a shop, a point shop. So you choose your challenge to get the points, see what challenge you're going to do. Like, oh, I'll do a run without herbs to get 1,000 points, whatever, and I'll buy whatever. And everything's available. Nothing has to be unlocked through a specific challenge, unlike Resident Evil Village, which does lock some things behind specific challenges, and 4 Remake, which we'll get onto in a bit, which has a shop as well, but once again, it doesn't do it the best way. This one does it the best way, and there's some really fun unlockables in this one. First of all, there's unlocking key items early, so that you can now unlock a new speedrun route. I love that. That's such a good idea, getting some key items early so that you can go into Raccoon City with the lockpick already, so you can start unlockpicking straight away. That's so cool. There's hip pouches, so you can start with more inventory space. That's always a lovely thing in a Resident Evil game. Inventory space is always something you want more of in Resident Evil games. And then there's fun ones. There's like Jill's Stars outfit, and there's the Hot Dogger, which is a knife that sets enemies on fire, which is really cool. It looks really cool. There's the Raiden, which is a lightning gun that does no damage unless you get a crit, in which case it does insane damage. So that makes it really fun because it's still got some level of skill to it. Because even though it one-shots almost every enemy in the game, you have to get a crit, and if you miss a crit, it does no damage. And it has a really long cooldown if you miss. So if you miss and you don't get hit with it, you don't kill anything, you don't do any damage, and then you gotta wait for the cooldown. I love the Raiden. That was such a good unlockable add in the game. And there's other things as well, and they're all really fun. I love the unlock shop in Resident Evil 3 Remake. It's actually my favorite unlockable system in any of the games, and got some of my favorite rewards to pick from as well. My problem with that game is that its size. It's not long enough, and it's too linear. If it was just a bit wider and a bit longer, so there was more of the game in both situations, this would be my favorite Resident Evil game ever. But unfortunately, that just isn't quite the case. And for that, and this is where sorry everyone, I still love what is in this game. I think most of what's in this game is incredible. There's just not enough of it, and it's too linear, but I do love it. And that is why I'm gonna put it here. S+, I think, is fair. I think what is there is really good. It just needed some more. And now Resident Evil 4 Remake. The last one, the latest mainline Resident Evil game. I love this game. I think, and maybe this is also a bit of a controversial opinion, I think it improves on the original in almost every way. The gameplay feels tighter. The knife parry is such an incredible addition that makes this game so much more fun. The gunfighting is much better because you can move and you can shoot. You can do the thing where you kind of like aim and the crosshairs come in. I can't remember what they call that, but they introduced that in Resident Evil 2 Remake. The enemies are a lot faster, but so you're able to move around a lot more. The shooting feels great in this game. Everything about Resident Evil 4 Remake feels incredibly good. It's so smooth. It's the best action horror we've ever had in a Resident Evil game. There's bits missing from the game, and if I'm being completely honest, they're the bits I didn't like in the original Resident Evil 4. I'm kind of glad that the bit where you're chasing a red guy with the medallion and he gets on a minigun is gone. I'm glad that's gone. I'm glad that U3 is gone. I don't like the cage fight with U3. I mean, the second fight with U3, I like that. I was sad that was gone. But then it showed up in separate ways. There were things that were missing that then they just showed up in separate ways, and that's fine. Resident Evil 4 Remake is phenomenal. I think a lot of what they cut was things that should have been cut. The bit where you're on the digger with Ashley that is now a wrecking ball is so much better than the original. I think that that change is a very positive change. I think that the fact that Ashley is no longer a health bar that you have to manage, she's now just someone who, she goes down and then she dies, and you can just get her up and down to heal her with your own healing items. Is such a better change. You have to increase her max health. She's much more fun to manage, and she's so much more fun to talk to throughout the game. She's talking back to you. She's having conversations with the Leon. They have a much better chemistry in this game, and Leon's dialogue is so much better. Ashley's dialogue is so much better. The conversation is so much better. The only thing I could say bad about the dialogue is I wish we spoke to the bad guys more. I know it's a bit goofy to FaceTime them. Maybe that's not the best way to do it, but we hardly speak to them at all in this game. We hardly speak to them at all, and they feel that this noticed. You feel the lack of villain presence in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Boss fights are so much better, especially the Salazar and Sadler boss fights. They are vastly improved over the original. We get some cool new weapons. We get the Skull Shaker. That's what it's called, the Skull Shaker, the lever action shotgun in Field Deluxe Edition, and assault rifle now. A bit weird to make sure you're first person for it, but assault rifle was missing from the original. You don't get the PRL 412, which is a bit of a shame. I did love that gun in the original. That is one thing that I'm sad is missing. That's one of the things I'm sad is missing, is the PRL. That's a good gun, good fun laser gun. Resident Evil 4 Remake has some interesting unlockable options, so it's got some cool ones. It doesn't have as much as I would have thought to be honest. It's got some costumes that are cool, it's got some like accessories that are cool, but in terms of like weapons, it actually doesn't have too many. And I guess this mostly comes from the fact that it's got a New Game Plus, so your unlockables are just kind of the weapons that you carry over into the New Game Plus anyway. It does have some things, and they're really cool. 3 weapons you can unlock that then are at the start of your playthroughs. There's a Primal Knife, which is a knife that when fully upgraded, it doesn't start like this, but when fully upgraded, has infinite durability, which is really useful. And it looks like Leon's knife from the original game, which is a nice little twist, because he's now using the knife he got in Resident Evil 2 from Marvin for the game. But this one looks like his knife from the original game, which is a good idea. Then you get the Chicago typewriter. I think it's called the Chicago Sweeper now, but it should still be called the Chicago Typewriter. That was my favorite name for it. That was cool. It's a Tommy gun. Once again, when fully upgraded, it doesn't start like this, has infinite ammo. Through Mercenaries, you can unlock the hand cannon. You can also unlock it through another challenge, like Crumble is. And all these have a challenge tied to them. I can't put the challenges up, but they have a challenge tied to them that unlock them, and then you can buy them in the point shop. So, kind of wish it was just a point shop, but whatever. And once again, with the hand cannon, once it's upgraded, it gets infinite ammo. And this is important, I'm about to say, because there are then some other unlockables that do help gameplay-wise that aren't weapons. You unlock some accessories that have abilities tied to them. So like you unlock Hunk's Mask that gives you aim assist on any difficulty, which is the worst one really, because whatever. You unlock one that gives you more melee damage. There's a chicken hat that reduces the damage you take, and that's a good one. That's the one you want to get before trying the hardest run, which I'll talk about in a sec. And then the last one, which is the hardest one to get, is cat ears, which gives you infinite ammo. And also, by the way, pretty much the same things unlockable for Separate Ways, with the same challenges but for Separate Ways. There's a knife that becomes infinite, there's a Chicago typewriter, and there's the cat ears and a tail grader that unlock the same way but in separate ways. And chicken hat as well. What you have to do for the cat ears, which is the hardest one, you have to complete the game on professional difficulty, which is tough, in under 4.5 hours with less than 16 saves. These numbers might be slightly off. I think it's about right. It's under about 4.5 hours with about 16 saves without using New Game Plus. And that's where the real trick comes in. You don't have any of your stuff. But the key here is you can use your unlockable. So you can put on the hat. The chicken hat probably is the one you're going to use because it reduces all damage by 50%. You can give Ashley the armor, which is good because then Ashley's not something you have to worry about now. And you can buy the Chicago typewriter and the hand cannon, but you do have to fully upgrade them before they become infinite. So when I did it the first time when I was still learning the game, where I did it and the way I recommend anyone who's just looking for the easiest way to do it, the best thing to do is to get as many optional challenges done along the start of the game as you can, so that you can get a blue ticket to get the exclusive upgrade quickly for the hand cannon or the Chicago typewriter. I'd probably choose the typewriter and make it infinite ammo, and then you can use that for the rest of the run. It's still going to be a challenge. It's still going to be hard. You've still got to do it quick. You've still got only 16 saves, and there's no auto saves on professional either. So these saves are your only checkpoints as well. If you die, you go all the way back to your last save. That's quite a good way of doing it. I do wish there was less focus on speedruns for every unlock in this. I think every unlock is done through a speedrun, except maybe 1 or 2. I wish there was less focus on that. I always prefer it. There are a variety of challenges, like do it without healing, do it without using an item box in the older games, and you can't do that in 4. Pistols only, maybe. That's a cool one. Things like that. I like when there's a variety of challenges, not just like do it this fast, do it this fast, do it this fast, do it this fast on this difficulty, do it this fast. Speedruns are fun for like 1 or 2 challenges. Well, shouldn't be all of them. But yeah, that's the unlockables in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Separate Ways is far improved from the original Separate Ways. The story we give Ada in this version is way better, and this is actually, in my opinion, one of the best DLCs in gaming. Separate Ways in Resident Evil 4 Remake. I love Resident Evil 4 Remake Separate Ways. Giving Ada grapple executions, fighting characters that weren't in the main campaign, like U3 again, fighting the Saddler fight when he's not mutated is really interesting to see. The weapons she gets, crossbow again, the shotgun again. Then there's the whole bit in the lab with there's a whole big new monster. She does the laser bit that was missing from Resident Evil 4 Remake, and from the main game of Resident Evil 4 Remake. And it makes so much more sense for Ada to do that than Leon. Ada is the spy. Ada wants to get through the lasers and dodge them, and the scene's really cool, and you're being chased by a new monster. That bit's so creepy. You're reading the notes leading up to it, being like, well, what is this new monster I never saw in the original Separate Ways? And then he comes out of nowhere, you're not expecting it. He chases you around that little lab section, and this is all instead of the boat section that was the worst bit of Separate Ways in the original. Wesker shows up more. I'm not sure why he's on site, but he shows up more. He collects Krauser's thing, and I mean, Krauser is incredible in the remake. They've rearranged these things so that Luis is in the game for a bit longer because he died a bit early on in the original, and then him dying coincides with Krauser showing up earlier. So Krauser's in the game more, you get to know Krauser much more, and the knife fight is so much more fun. It's not just a QT sequence, it uses the new parry system, which is really, really good. I love the parry system in this game and the dodge system. Resident Evil 4 is the best action horror game we've ever had, in my opinion. I think Resident Evil 2 Remake probably the best survival horror. If this was more of an objective list, and that's been my opinion, Resident Evil 4 Remake would probably be the top of the list. But I'm going to put it here because I love Resident Evil 3 Original. So that about covers it. That is all of the Resident Evil games that I've played, and I think all of them, barring maybe some that are only released in Japan, some smaller, lesser known ones. Which leaves Resident Evil Requiem. Where do we think that's going to sit? Well, it's hard to say. This is a prediction, so this could be wrong. It could come out and it's way better than I thought. It could come out and it's way worse than I thought. But from what I've seen so far, it is a mixture of Resident Evil 4 Remake's gameplay, which we've got right at the top here, right next to Resident Evil 3, and Resident Evil 2 Remake's gameplay, which is just one place behind it. So to me, I think this could end up right here, right ahead of them. It's a mixture of two of the best games in the franchise, and that's it. Well, we'll have to see when it comes out. Also, the fact that we're going back to Raccoon City is a big help. I love Raccoon City as a setting. I'm so glad we're going back there. And with the ending of Outbreak, we know they've been testing on it. We know Outbreak's canon now because Alyssa's showing up again. Well, Grace is showing up and Alyssa is her mother. And the end of Outbreak showed that they're testing on the remains of Raccoon City. So, yes, Resident Evil 9, I am very excited for Resident Evil 9 Requiem. And I can't wait to actually figure out where it goes on this list when it comes out. For now, this is where I'm predicting. Maybe that's a bit optimistic of me. We can hope. So, thank you everyone for listening to my opinions of every Resident Evil game. I think a lot of these, I cut them a bit short. I could have so much more to say about almost all of these games, but it's already quite a long video as it is, and I don't want to overstay my welcome. But thank you for watching. I do stream pretty much only Resident Evil games. If you want to see me playing through these games that I love and know so well, I'm on Twitch and on YouTube every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Trying to up that soon if we can. If there's more want for it, then we will up those numbers and stream more often and for longer. And I'd love to see more people there, have chat about these games that I love so much. But also, if you do want to chat about them, we have a Discord. That's in the description below. If you want to go down there, join the Discord, chat about Resident Evil, other survival horror games. I love other survival horror games. Dead Space, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Evil Within, Parasite Eve, Dino Crisis, Onimusha, you know, lots of games. And I play other games as well, not just survival horror games. They're just my favorites. And we'll talk about all things in there. So please do come and hang out and chat and join. And I give updates for my streams there as well. So if you do want to see a stream, that's the best place to find out when I'll be streaming next. That's kind of it. Yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. See you later. Bye bye.